Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Birds pregame live here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook on Delaware Ave in Philadelphia. It's where Philly loves a winner. I'm Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds alongside my co-host Adam Kaplan. Now with us tonight, now you have to excuse Greg Cosell. He's usually with us. It's a late game, so it's a little past his bedtime. But if we were going to find someone who specializes in tape breakdown the way Greg does, we found the best, and that is Brian Baldinger. What's going on, Baldy?
I'm happy to be here with you guys, man. I mean, I heard that we're going to talk a little bit about this game, which has me excited.
Talk a little football in the show, just a little
good.
bit, just a little bit. Of course, with us as always, usual suspect number 2, and that's Jason Avant, former Eagles wide receiver, co-host of the Q&A show on Inside the Birds. We are back at Jack's Bar and Grill as the Eagles look to make it 2 straight wins. Holy cow, can the Eagles win 2 in a row? And obviously, it would be the 2 wins in a 5-day span. As we're here at Jack's, I kind of feel like we were just here. But it's not too far removed from our last show. Exactly. But if the Eagles are going to win tonight, it's got to come against the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and arguably the best that ever done it, and that's Tom Brady. The Bucs are already 4-1, coming off a 45-17 pasting of the Miami Dolphins. It's the second time this year already that they've scored at least 45 points in a game. No big deal. Eagles got this. The Eagles obviously struggled to score points in Charlotte last week, but they did come out with a 21-18 win thanks to 3 takeaways and a huge blocked punt at the end of the game. So it's a great night to head down here to Rivers. You can still come now. Come watch the game on any one of their amazing flat screen TVs in their sportsbook area. Place a wager, bring some friends, come see Baldy, listen to him break down the game. And like we're here for every pregame show. So make sure you catch us every time the Eagles are playing. It is the perfect place and the perfect time to just enjoy the weather, the beautiful scenery here at Rivers Casino, and the great football, food, and beer as well. If you get a chance, right now, hit the share button, hit retweet button, hit the like button. Anything you can do to support Inside the Birds pregame live, we'd really appreciate it. And of course, on YouTube, if you leave a comment in the chat box, we'll try to answer it in this show. Let's start with some late breaking news here. So we have a couple of transactions. Dallas Goddard, tight end, who we've all been looking for in the box score the last few weeks. He's not even going to be on the field tonight. He's still on the COVID-19 reserve list. So he's going to be out for the game. In his place, the Eagles have elevated 2 players from the practice squad. Noah Togiai, who just came back, is elevated, as well as Laraven Clark, because Sua Opeta is also still on the COVID-19 list, which has been for a couple of games now. So, we hope Sua Opeta is doing well and okay, but this is obviously important for the Eagles.
Yeah, and one thing, Jason, you'd mentioned right before we started with Togiai, because you were working with the Eagles last season. What did they like about Togiai?
They viewed him as a solid backup tight end because he blocks. His blocking is astounding. He's a big guy. He doesn't run fast, but he catches everything, and he's just the perfect backup tight end. And it's a great situation to pair him with Zach Ertz tonight. If he is that advanced with, knowing the plays and things of that nature. But Zach, use him in the pass game, but you're not going to miss a beat with him in the run game.
Well, there is an interesting thing about knowing the plays versus knowing the staff, right?
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with the Noah Togiai story, the Eagles had him in camp last year as an undrafted free agent, really liked him, figured he would make the team, tried to sneak him through waivers at the cut deadline. Somehow the Colts figured it out, even though there were no preseason games, and claimed him, so he was with the Colts last year. Gets released, now he's back. But he's back with the same coach in Nick Sirianni, who was with the Colts last year, same pass game guy in Kevin Patullo, and also the same position coach. Jason Michael was the Colts tight end coach last year. The one big difference, guys, is it's a totally different offense. So I don't know how comfortable they are tonight throwing Noah Togiai in, Brian, with an offense that looks completely different than what the Colts did.
Well, they haven't been, a big tight end-based offense to begin with. I mean, they don't do a lot of 2 tight end looks the way Frank Reich did and Nick did in Indianapolis, where they were a big 2 and 3 tight end team. So it's not their style of football. That doesn't mean he can't get an opportunity. This is a great opportunity if he gets on the field tonight. Everybody in this business can use a good blocking tight end. It makes for a strong side run game. Now, the Eagles don't really emphasize the run, so that would, we'll have to see that.
I'm sorry, the what?
Yeah,
the run game?
Yeah, well, everybody sort of just shies away from trying to even run it against Tampa.
Right.
Just because they've been so good at it for the last 3 years.
Right.
The best in the league at it. So I don't expect them to really pound the ball inside tonight.
What do you expect from Zach Ertz tonight? He's probably going to have to see an uptick in playing time, and a guy who can get open on RPOs. Well, he can make production off of RPOs. Do you expect a bigger night for him?
I would think the pass targets should go up because of Tampa's issues in the secondary. They're starting to back up the corner, which we'll get into. The matchups here for passing are pretty good. You've got the two teams when you look at running, right? Eagles running backs, the lowest number of runs in the National Football League per game, right? Mm-hmm. Tampa 30th. So they're going to throw the football. The weather's terrific tonight. There's going to be a lot of passing, but the question is, when the Eagles run it, how do they do it? Do they do double teams? What do they do to at least get Miles Sanders going here? Miles Sanders, another person. We've talked every game, the underutilization of their real, not just pass target group, but just as the playmakers.
Right.
The playmakers need to get the football tonight.
Jay, I know you and Q talked a lot about the receivers getting open, the scheme, and you guys both also felt that Dallas Goedert's got to be a more prominent part. So the question I would ask you, though, is when you watch the tape, is it anything he's not doing right? Is he getting open? Is he getting the separation that he needs, which for a tight end isn't always a lot? Is he making the physical plays that he needs to make?
Yeah, so we've seen him with the ball in his hand, and he's pretty special. Once he catches the ball, he beasts guys. He just totally throws guys out of the way, and he makes plays a bunch. And I'm dumbfounded at times of why they don't make him the central passing target for the team. Mm-hmm. They want to get Devontae Smith the ball. They're trying to get Jalen Reagor, who have more targets than Dallas Goedert. It just doesn't make sense. He is one of the premier young tight ends in the league, and he's not getting the proper opportunity. Zach Ertz is kind of muddying that a little bit because they're still giving him a lot of targets, and he's getting targets taken away from him. Right. Partly because he's the better blocker of the two. So he's in the blocking game because Zach Ertz is not that great of a blocker, so he goes out for the pass at times. So is he getting open? Yes, he's getting open. I will always nitpick and say the tight ends can use their body a bunch because they're so big and they're so agile that they try to beat some of the defenders with their feet rather than their size. Right. The good ones doesn't always have to be Travis Kelce. They can go and lean in on the guy, same foot, same shoulder, just like you would tackle. You can do that on offense. Lean into a guy and get off separation. I think those guys can do a better job at that.
I agree. I find it interesting that the discussion, maybe from the outside, about Miles Sanders seems to be, what is he not doing? Why do these coaches not like him? But you're going through the same thing with Dallas Goedert, but nobody's saying, well, what isn't Dallas Goedert doing? Why don't the coaches? They just wonder it more about a scheme thing. I feel like with Miles, people are looking for some reason to wonder why the coaches don't like him, though.
Yeah.
We can get into this. We're going to get into the whole offense as we go along. I find that whole discussion a little bit fascinating and inconsistent, but we'll get into that. I want to go to the injuries because obviously both teams have some significant ones. Fewer for the Philadelphia Eagles, as we know. Dallas Goedert on the COVID list, not going to play, like we said. Lane Johnson's still out with personal matters. Now, as far as injuries go, that's it. There's nobody for the Eagles who's out who should be playing tonight ordinarily, so that's great. And the only one that was even in question was Derek Barnett with the shoulder, but on the injury report, they said he would have practiced as a full participant if they had a real practice the last time they practiced. So that's good news for Derek Barnett. As for the Bucs, lots of injuries, guys. Tight end Rob Gronkowski, not going to play tonight. He's still coming back from the broken ribs. Linebacker Levante David, one of the best in the league, out with the high ankle sprain. Antoine Winfield, who I like this guy. I love Winfield coming out of college.
I remember that in our pre-draft shows. You were very high on him.
Let me just say, I'm so glad he went to Minnesota and not Ohio State, so I can actually really, really like him, unlike his dad. But and I like his play, and obviously they're without their two starting corners, who are both on IR. So you got Richard Sherman, Ross Cockrell out there, and that's a matchup that we'll get into a little bit later. The center, Ryan Jensen, he's questionable. So it looks like he's going to play, but he's nursing a hip injury. Yep. And Jason Pierre-Paul also going to play, but he's been kind of nursing the hand and shoulder injuries, but he should play. Let's address this now before it becomes completely lost in the sauce. A very interesting transaction for the Eagles earlier this week. Travis Fulgham, on the anniversary of the day he dominated the Steelers, he got his walking papers from the Eagles practice squad.
Wow.
Jeez. What a fun. Jay, you were with the team last year. Yeah. You were an assistant wide receiver coach. I know that months ago on your Q&A show, you almost predicted this kind of path for Travis once the offseason unfolded the way it did. So I'm sure you're not surprised to see that he's no longer with the team.
Well, he's up and down. When he's motivated, he can be really good. And when he goes in and, beats guys in the run game and he goes out and he attacks the football, he's a different player. But trying to get that motivation consistently is hard to get from Travis. And that's why I say you need players in his situation to be inspired, because he's on a practice squad. He's not, even if he has a 200-yard day against Darius Slay or the guys on defense, no one's going to say anything about it. He has to step up the next day and do that same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
And he's just not built mentally to handle practice squad and being on the practice team and not getting credit. He needs constant affirmation, constant motivation, constant pep talk. And so I can see this coming a million miles away.
When you're a first-round pick, they'll put up with that a little bit. When you're a sixth-round pick,
you just
who was
don't.
already on your third team.
When he was Carson's favorite target for 4 or 5 weeks last year, was he a different person? Jason, did he walk with a different swag? Did he look like he dominated out in practice when he was literally getting most of the targets and the key plays in almost every game for a stretch?
Yeah, so what happened was that he caught a few teams by surprise. He played really well against a team in the Steelers that is not frequent man coverage, and he was able to run down the field freely sometimes. And people kind of they don't think about that when you're playing against zone teams and they're not getting in your face. So a little bit of it was just him gaining confidence because he was going against some defenses that guys weren't in his face, and he got found out when guys started getting in his face and they started to bump him a little bit, and he couldn't get off the press as good. Right, so I thought it was a little bit of I won't say fool's gold, but he just had some teams that was built to his skill set, and mentally, he did have a different confidence when he was getting the ball, when he had the targets. And when Alshon came back, I thought it was a poor decision by the organization to put Alshon and Deshaun back in the fold. I thought they should have let Jalen Reagor continue to play. I thought they should have let Travis Fulgham, John Hightower, those young guys, Quez, all of those guys, because now they would be further ahead, helping our team in a different way if they would have been able to play out the entire season.
Jason, what we're told is with Detroit, when he thought he had a good training camp a couple years ago, and he sulked, he complained, and the coaches they couldn't deal with this guy.
Yeah.
And you have here where he does extremely well, and you guys just talked about it, where Jeffrey plays over when Jeffrey comes back from his injury. And I understand he felt like he was entitled to keep playing, but you know what? That's not your call. And I just think he had trouble handling the challenge of being a football player. Jeff, you and I talked about his background was not your normal background in football. He had a soccer background.
Right.
His parents are
overseas.
educators, and he lived all across the world. And there was some disconnect between he and the coaches. And they clearly gave up on him. Now, the Dolphins signed him to the practice squad, but our understanding is that they were not going to bring him back, even if the Dolphins did not sign him.
The thing is that this has to be your number one. To play at a high level, most guys in this level, it has to be your number one focus. And usually you don't have anything else to go back to. It's a bunch of hungry dog type of guys that are just adamant about making it. And I don't know if Travis had that type of tenacity for this game.
No. Well, we'll see if the Miami Dolphins can coax it out of him, because it's with their practice squad now, as Adam just mentioned. All right, let's get into this game. The champs are here. The champs are in town, Tampa Bay, and that means Tampa Bay, right? Tom Brady back here at the link. Arguably the best player at his position. Some say the best player of all time. He is a Michigan grad, so I know that Jason Avant's going to take a little bit of pride in that one. Now, he's faced the Eagles 7 times in his career, playoffs and regular season. In his 20-year career, he's only lost twice. Anyone remember the last time that happened? Because there was this. And then there was also this. Oh, and there was also this. Well, unfortunately for the Eagles, Brandon Graham will not be on the field to strip sack Tom Brady tonight because of a ruptured Achilles. And unfortunately for the Eagles, Tom Brady is as good this year as he actually was in that Super Bowl game where he was historically good passing. Just look at right now. He's #1 in the NFL at attempts, completions, and passing yards. Only 13th in completion percentage, but he's got 15 touchdowns, which is tied for second, and a passer rating of 108.5, which is good for 5th. He's coming off a 400-yard, 5-touchdown effort against the Dolphins defense that, I thought the Dolphins were supposed to be good on defense going into the year. Apparently they haven't been. Adam, I'm going to ask you this. When Brady left New England to sign with Tampa, we've seen like Joe Montana did this, went to Kansas City. We've seen some legends. Brett Favre, it did not end well for. Were you thinking that this was going to be another kind of sad story, or were you expecting what you've seen out of him?
Well, first of all, Jeff, last March, right? March of 2020, right when the pandemic started, the Raiders were going to pursue Tom Brady. They were going to make a monster offer. They gathered information. There were some things they were not comfortable with. In addition to the money, it was actually more other things that he wanted.
Right.
So they backed off. So Tampa jumped in, and they got him. But just talking to people around the league, they thought Brady still had it. But they didn't think he could do what he's doing now, and actually did last year. But let's not forget, Jason Licht, the general manager, if you look at the roster, they were really a quarterback away from being a really good team. He had drafted well after some rocky times, getting involved in free agency early in his career. Light really got it together. Devin White, you could go through all the Vita Vea, we've talked about a lot. He's got a really good roster, but Brady ties it all together, and he still has it. It's really remarkable, and we've talked about this before. Best practice of my life I've ever been to an NFL training camp was here in Philly. 14 or 15. And I rarely chart practice. I don't like doing it, but because it was Brady, I wanted to see it. 25 for 25.
Yeah, Chip
with anticipation on every. Exactly, Chip was here. Every single pass. Baldy, we know you break down tape. You put it on Twitter, Baldy's breakdowns. You've broken down a lot of quarterbacks. But when you've graded and watched Brady over the years, what do you see?
Well, I mean, everything about his technique is perfect. The way that he throws the football. I mean, he's always in position to throw. So it starts with his footwork. It starts with his delivery. It starts with he has an uncanny ability to feel pressure, never see it. Like a boxer in a ring can just parry a punch. That's all it takes. He can take a punch as well as any quarterbacks. He did it last week against the Dolphins. They put up 45 against the Dolphins last week. They could have scored 60 easily. They scorched Byron Jones repeatedly with Mike Evans. He matched up with Evans. Evans destroyed him. They're running 26-yard comebacks. Like, nobody runs a 26-yard comeback, Jason. Nobody. I mean, like a 26-yard comeback. Like, you know how long that takes?
Yeah.
Like, and the ball's in the air as soon as Evans hits that 26-yard mark, and he's catching it at 22, and Byron Jones is 8 yards away from him. And then you're watching Antonio Brown just run these crossing routes against Xavier Howard. And Xavier Howard had 10 interceptions. He was paid to be a top flight corner. I think those two corners, in combination, are the highest paid duo of corners in the league. They destroyed him. Not to mention what Chris Godwin did, against the third corner. So, and you watched Brady throw it last week, like, he's got his fastball.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, Tom Brady, probably his best offensive year prior to last or this year in New England was when he had Randy Moss and he had Wes
07.
Welker, and they set all those records and they lost in the Super Bowl. If you're being honest, this offense that he's surrounded by now, if you take the offensive line and the weapons, it's got to be better than that offense, right? I know they had Gronk and Hernandez at the time and Randy Moss, right? That's pretty good, but this set of weapons and offensive line, that's got to be as good as he's ever had. which is a scary thought, no?
Well, Antonio Brown is.
I mean, a Hall of Famer is a slot receiver.
Yeah. It's really remarkable what he's doing. And here's the thing, guys. What do you do from a pass rush standpoint? When you look at Brady, they always say, okay, get to his feet. Well, that's easier said than done. What can you do to slow him down?
Well, I mean, the teams that have, like, for example, the Patriots did a good job against him this year. He completed just barely 50% of his passes. He didn't throw a touchdown that day. He struggled. But, you know, the Patriots play a certain style of defense where they'll rush 3, they'll drop 3, they'll bring late pressure. They run their same twist stunts they've run for 20 years. They still get home. All you need to do, you know, in the first 2 seconds is just get him off that spot. Just get him moving. He's not going to stay there in 2 seconds. He will move. And so the Patriots repeatedly moved him. But you can't play defense the way we've seen, you know, Jonathan Gannon call defense. I mean, you've got to take your chances. I remember, you were probably on the, I believe you were on the team, Jason, but I remember one year Jim Johnson was the coordinator. They went up to New England, and he put a different defense in every quarter.
Was this the A.J. Feely game?
That was A.J. Feely game.
A.J. Feely game.
Yeah, he threw the pick to Sante
at
to
the
lose
end.
the game.
At the end.
Yeah. But that was a great
in that
defensive
game plan, Jim Johnson had literally a different front for each quarter. So Brady's getting comfortable. He's getting comfortable. Second quarter, different front. Different look. Now that's, you know, next level game planning. I don't, you know, I'm not down. You know, I mean, there's one Jim Johnson out there. So, but that's the type of in-season game planning that you had to do, that teams know you have to do, to try and take advantage of them.
Pressure or ball control? What do the Eagles need to do?
Well, it won't be ball control, right? Because it won't be ball control, but pressure is one of the things. And when you look at great quarterbacks, you're talking about the Peyton Mannings, Drew Brees, Tom Brady. Teams that beat those guys are guys that can play man-to-man and get pressure from the D-line.
Right.
We don't do that well on our team. We're not built to play man-to-man. So the thing that I would say that we have to do is get pressure up front and be solid in the red zone, because they're going to move the ball. It's just that if you can eliminate some of the touchdowns and you can make those field goals, it gives you a fighting chance at the end of the game. If I can get some pressure up front, but Tom Brady's going to throw this ball up and down the field for most of the day just because the way our defense is set up. He's seen everything that we have thrown at. We played 4 coverages over the last 5 games, right? We played cover 2, 3, 4, and we played a little bit of man.
What's that coverage, Jason, when the safeties are in the parking lot?
No, that's just way the hell back.
Is that cover
back.
nobody?
Margos, remember. Let's get when Margos had to play, they put him back 30 yards. Right.
Yeah, so he's a complicated matchup for us just all around the board. There's nothing that we can do that he hadn't seen. So he's going to eat us alive. We just have to stop him from scoring touchdowns, and hopefully we can bat down a ball or 2 or get a sack and give us an extra opportunity.
Sure. And do remember, we didn't mention it in the injury report, he is nursing a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Now, I went and looked up. He had the sore thumb. He hit the helmet in the second quarter, and they still put up 45 points. So I'm not suggesting that sore thumb is going to hold him back any, but he does have a sore thumb, so that's important.
Well, I mean, if you're going to get him with a sore thumb, it's better to get him on a short week and just see.
Absolutely.
Just see if it is, and we'll see what kind of tape job he has on it and all that.
You know,
I'm sure, you know, Thursday Night Television will be all over it. Troy will be talking about it. But that can be bothersome.
We need rain. We need guys.
We need rain?
We need rain.
Better start dancing.
Beautiful night tonight, man.
Jason, I heard you have a special connection to me up above. You better put that call in.
We need some rain. That we need what New England had.
Jason Avant doing a rain dance at the end of this show will be quite a sight to see. Make sure you stick around for that. All right, well, look, if pressure is the key, obviously the Eagles need a very big game from their interior tandem of Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. They combined for 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits against the Panthers, and they also helped force Sam Darnold into 3 interceptions. Now, from NFL's next-gen stats, the Eagles' defense had 19 pressures in that game. That's the 4th most by a team in a game this year. So the starting defensive line had at least 6 of those pressures and did it mostly with 4 rushers or fewer, because we know the Eagles don't blitz very much. So clearly, that's the page they need to borrow
Ali Marpet's
from.
a little different than Dennis Dale.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
he is.
good point, right?
Yes, he is. Ali Marpet from Hobart, correct?
Right.
From Hobart
Good
College.
lacrosse school.
I was just going to say, we don't know that. We know for lacrosse, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Much different offensive line this time around. Baldy, why don't you, since you put that out there, tell me about the Bucs offensive line, specifically the interior offensive line, and what challenges face Hargrave and Cox.
Well, I know Ryan Jensen real well. I've known him a long time. You know, he told me a story. You talk about Brady. You know, last year during the pandemic, You know, Brady signs, and he's having like these private workouts in these parks around the town. So Ryan Jensen's out there, like, you know, he's got a smattering of guys, not the whole team, but they've got, guys need a center, to start each play. So Ryan goes out there, and Brady pulls him aside every day and talks to him about the snap. Now, this guy's been snapping the football his whole life. And Brady gives him a 30-minute dissertation every day, wet ball, shotgun, goal line, like every situation where a center could be compromised, with a bad snap. And Brady is telling him, like, this is where I want the rag, the towel that you're going to wear, this is where I like it, this is how I like to lace it. I mean, I'm bringing it up just because of the level of detail.
Yeah.
Just the level of detail.
That's awesome.
What
That's
a diva.
the great ones. That's the great ones.
That's amazing.
But it's just how he thinks,
Right.
and when you go to practice and you watch him, he's talking to his coaches and his players, like every single play, about what he saw, what he needs, what he wants, what he's looking for, advancing this. It's situational football all day long. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the interior, Ryan Jensen is, like, he wants to finish every guy. Mm-hmm. He is a tough kid, and he takes a lot of pride in it. Ali Marpet's a great athlete. Mm-hmm. And Tristan Wirfs came in last year, played every snap, didn't give up, he gave up one sack to Khalil Mack the whole year, shut down player after player, and that was the missing piece. Donovan Smith played much better because Brady just gets rid of the ball so fast.
Right.
And quarterbacks like Jameis, who used to hold the ball a long time, he would get beat late.
Sure.
But because Brady gets rid of the ball so quickly and so decisively, Donovan Smith became a much better player.
Right.
And Tristan Wirfs is just an unbelievable athlete.
Yeah.
Just an unbelievable
Those
athlete.
guys from Iowa know how to block. I tell you that.
Well, you
Those
can
Iowa
the field at
offensive
Iowa if you can't block.
Yeah,
It's just
absolutely, absolutely. Look, I mean, there's no doubt that whoever is lined up across Javon Hargrave this year, though, has had a challenge because he's pretty much done it in every game.
Yeah.
His 6 sacks and 7 tackles for a loss, most by an NFL defensive tackle this year.
Yep.
That includes Aaron Donald, okay?
Yep.
He's also the first Eagle to have 6 sacks in the first 5 games of a year since Jason Babin in 2011.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes I say names and I know people watching are just going to be like,
Reggie or
yeah,
Jerome
yeah.
Brown or
no,
something
Jason
like that.
Babin.
Maybe Trent.
I know. But he's also the 5th defensive tackle in the NFL to do it since 2000. He's got 21 pressures so far for an interior defensive line, most through 5 games since 2016. That puts him in pretty elite company here. You see Aaron Donald had 7.5 sacks in the first 5 games in 2020. Geno Atkins has done it twice. He's had 6 sacks through the first 5 games in 2012, 2018. And Leroy Glover from the Saints, going all the way back,
Really good
had
football
6
player.
sacks in 2020.
Dallas,
Warren Sapp, 6.5 through the first 5 games in 2020. So that's a pretty good company that Javon Hargrave.
The interesting thing about this is the Eagles are running multiple fronts. We didn't know this when we went to OTAs and training camp that they'd run 34, but they are doing some of that. And it doesn't seem to matter what they line up. Hargrave seems to beat everyone, and I like what Baldy said about Jensen. Mm-hmm. That's a matchup. We'll see who wins on that. If he gets on Marpet, we'll see if he wins that. That to me is the ball game tonight for the Eagles.
Right.
The front 4 must win. If they don't, the Bucs will put up 40 again. Because if you can't get home, at least make Brady move off his spot, it's over.
And not allow Brady to step up and step into his throws. So pressure in his face is much more effective than pressure off the edge.
Right.
Yeah.
Like those guys, they can feel that pressure. They know how to slide away from it. But when he can't step up, that's what really bothers a guy like Brady.
Well, one of the things we saw against the Panthers that I think we were expecting to see more of this year, but finally unveiled from that defensive line, was movement, stunts, picks, twists, things to get those guys moving all around. It worked both in the run and the pass game. How important was that when you guys rewatched the game to getting through that offensive line and getting Sam Darnold rattled?
You had some movement, but the thing that I saw, and me and Q talked about it, the thing that you saw that kind of helped them out was disguising. On the back end.
Right.
And Rodney McLeod brought a different energy to the game, different tempo to the game that allowed them to play a lot more cover 3 and see, when you're in cover 3 defense, you can stun a little bit more. When you're in cover 2, it's hard for you guys to get out and stun, right? Because it's a pass-based defense that you're trying to stop long plays. But when you're in cover 3, you're bringing safeties down to different sides. You're able to stunt and do a bunch. A lot of teams use it on first down, which the Eagles did a bunch last week, which allowed our D-line to do a little bit more. And I thought Rodney McLeod was the key to that, which trickled down to the D-line, right? Because they were able to play a little bit differently because because he was back there. He came down in the box with fervor. When he was in cover 2, he acted like he wanted to make the play rather than, hey, you guys hurry up and get there. And I don't want to make the play like our safeties have been doing the past few games. So I thought Rodney McLeod inserted into the football game helped our whole defense out, which caused the defensive line to do a little bit more than they were accustomed to doing.
It was a matchup that favored the Eagles. I mean, Brady Christensen starts his first game. All right, he's a rookie out of BYU. He starts the right tackle. They move the right tackle, Taylor Moton to left tackle. So they did this whole juggle thing. Now, look, the Eagles won the match. They won the game inside the pits there. I mean, they earned that. But they got good penetration. But if you can't get home one-on-one, then you've got to run stunts. You've got to run twists up front, and you've got to say, okay, if I'm the drive guy, if I'm Josh Sweat and I'm driving, then I got to go win. I got to win that drive. I've got to, so that Fletcher or somebody's coming around, can really get on a short corner, and that quarterback can feel that pressure. So I thought Derek Barnett and Hargrave did a good job of that.
Right.
And the one time that I'm just looking in my head, Barnett really drove hard across, the tackle's face, Taylor Moton's face, and then Hargrave, you want to really come tight off the hip because you really got a very short corner, and that's what that quarterback feels. He feels that coming at him, that color coming at him.
Right. You also can't really tee off on a quarterback if the opponent is ahead of the sticks a lot, which with the running game, they've been ahead of the sticks a lot for the first 4 weeks. You haven't seen Eagles opponents in a lot of 3rd and long or 2nd and long situations. Clearly, they did a better job of stopping the run than they had done. I know Chuba Hubbard had that 26-yard run, but after that,
100 yards still.
They had 100 yards, but their average per carry was under 4.5, where it had been over in the past. I'm wondering, you saw more 5-man fronts. You saw different linebackers getting in there. How much do you think that was a response to them not being able to stop the run, or just opponent-driven?
Because remember, Avery early in the season was playing as the 5th man in the box. They stopped doing it, and then they went back to it. It's a good question. Did you guys feel like watching the tape that it impacted it?
Well, I think first of all, Nick Sirianni jumped Jonathan Gannon during the week. Like that game plan was pathetic. Like he got on him, and publicly got on him. And usually you don't.
He didn't deny it either, by the way.
He didn't deny it. And then so there's an old saying in football. I mean, it's just been around. But like if you back up, you give it up. But if you step up, you clean it up. So I thought they attacked the line of scrimmage a lot more, Jason.
Well, when you have penetration. Right, when you have penetration, and like I said, the Eagles have been in cover 2 the entire time. It's a passive defense. That's what it is. It's a passive defense. The linebackers are at 7 yards or whatever. When you start to bring that cover 3 down and you start to get that 8th man into the box, right? You get that 7th man in the box or what have you. Now you get guys being a little bit aggressive toward the line of scrimmage. And when the D-line is getting home, it helps everyone out. Now the DBs can sit on routes. They can do a lot of things that they're not accustomed to doing because they know that the guys are not getting all day to throw, right? So we saw 3 interceptions just because the defensive line was getting pressure, and they were bringing more guys into the box because they felt comfortable they can confuse Sam Darnold. For crying out loud, Sam Darnold threw a interception right to Slay, and it was the easy coverage, easy read. It was cover 2. He just threw it there, and once you see that happen, you realize, man, we can run anything against this guy. And I think that Brady's been doing a great job just covering up for Sam Darnold, but that's just me.
So what do you expect then tonight? Do you expect a little bit more of that, or do you play a team like Tampa and say, no, we can't do that, we'll get killed right off the bat, or do you have to?
I mean, if you just went and watched last week's game against the Dolphins, I mean, it was bombs away. It was bombs. I mean, there was one deep shot after another. And Brady doesn't really like to play that game, but that's the game that they get. There was one-on-one football.
Right.
And their receivers were winning.
Yeah.
And so if they get into that type of attack, and that's what Bruce Arians wants to do, but if they get into that type of attack, it's going to take those safeties deep, Jason. Now, last week, they threw a touchdown to Giovanni Bernard, on a Texas route. They threw repeatedly to Leonard Fournette out of the backfield. They threw to Ronald Jones as well. I mean, Brady it was touchdown, check down all game long.
Yeah.
And so, it'll be a different game plan, I'm sure, this week. But I think they want to come here and put up a lot of points early and run this team out. I think that's their mentality. Come here, run them out of the gym, take the crowd out of the game. Like, I could just hear Brady's mind working. Let's jump on this group early. They're young, new coach, new system. Let's just attack them.
Yeah, Dolphins overconfident. You got guys that you think you can cover, Byron Jones, Xavier Howard. You have those guys say, oh, we can cover Mike Evans, we can cover Antonio Brown. No, you can't. You can't cover them. So they just made a foolish mistake of trying to play man-to-man versus really, really good players. And that was to their fault and their demise. But the Eagles don't have it like that. We don't have the personnel to do that. So I don't see them going bombs over Baghdad, but one quarterback that can consistently drive it 10 yards, 12 yards, 15 yards, 18 yards, 5 yards, whatever, all the way down the field consistently the entire game is Tom Brady.
It's funny how the Eagles keep talking about how difficult that is, and that's part of why they play a lot of 2 deep, but yet they keep running into the teams like Kansas City and Dallas and now Tampa Bay, who can actually go up and down the field just fine without turning the ball over.
And this is why this game is such a hard matchup for them, is because this guy, he's not going to make mistakes.
Right. He hasn't thrown interceptions since the first week.
Yeah, he doesn't make mistakes. So, you know.
And the Eagles guys are still playing the most zone defense. I know they played a little bit of man last week, but they're still playing overall 85% zone. Yeah. The Bucs, though, the Bucs are actually playing a lot of zone this season. Not as much man in years past. And Richard Sherman's out there, an older player.
Sure.
Jamel Dean is their nickel corner. He has to start now. There's some advantages here, and I know Sirianni knows this. I just wonder if he goes, you know, we got to throw early because, well, he should, but do they go crazy with 40 passes in this game because, hey,
try to match him point for point?
Exactly.
You know what I would do? Honestly,
what would you do,
I would put, I believe that Quez Watkins can be a star player.
Yep.
I don't know what you see, but I think he's got an elite
you were with him last season, yeah.
I believe he's got an elite burst. I think he can run all the routes. I think people just thought coming out of Southern Miss he was just a go route guy, but I think he's shown that he can win contested balls. I mean, I would put Quez out there against Richard Sherman. Like, he can't run with him.
Right.
So, like, the move that he made last week against the safety, like, he got him turned all the way around, you know, in the middle of the field. Like, I see if I could turn Richard Sherman around and take my shots. He's the one big play guy they've had. Devontae's been great. He's a good route runner. He's dependable, but he's the one guy that can get behind you.
So Jay, you coach.
You guys. But go ahead. You ask.
Well, I want to ask you, from a coach and a person who's played the position, in this league, we see players like Quez Watkins who either have the potential, as Baldy said, to really become a receiver, but then we also see some guys who specialize in being shot play type receivers. I brought up the Cowboys. Your receivers are Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. But Michael Gallup's a good shot play guy for them. Yeah. All right. John Brown, back when he was with the Bills, was kind of a shot play guy for them. You've coached Quez. Does he have the? I don't know from a route running standpoint. Can he be a guy who's a high volume 8-9 target guy, or is he a shot play guy?
So here's the thing. It all depends on which offense you're in. On our offense, where you need guys to make plays, he should be, like Baldy said, a premier target on our team based on what we're looking at. Right, so he should be that. Now, if you put him on the Cowboys, he may be that shot play guy because they have guys that can do that already. They have a 1 and a 2. Right. But can he do it? Yes, he can, and he should be. And I told you guys this. I said we had the wrong shuffle where he should be one of the he should be one of the guys that's outside, higher targets, and all those things. Can he do it? Yes.
Work habits, Jason.
So here's
work habits.
He works hard. Like last year they put him, you know, on practice team and you know, working with Darius Slay, and Darius Slay got after him and talked to him bad and all those things. And before you know it, this offseason, all you seen was Quez Watkins and Jalen Hurts working out. You didn't see many Ragers around. You didn't see Hightower around. You saw Quez Watkins this entire offseason putting in the time. Here's the problem. The problem is like this: politics. I drafted a guy number 1 last year. I drafted a guy number 1 this year. This guy, even if he is playing well, I'm not going to give up on these guys that I drafted 1 because I don't want to look like I'm just. This is the game, Baldy. This is the game.
This happened. Go ahead. That's what happened at Oklahoma. Caleb Williams is much better than you know. So they're getting through that politics. But this isn't Nick's guy. They didn't draft him out. When I hear this talk, Adam, I think, who's making the decisions?
We know this.
Okay,
No,
okay.
where does it
We know this, though. We know this. This isn't something that's new. We know this
This
organization
happened last year
likes
with Fulgham and Jeffrey. It should not have happened.
Exactly. We
that should not
know
happen.
that from the top down, higher organizations and or upper management comes down and make decisions that affect the whole team.
Yeah.
Right. So we know that this is one of those decisions where you got Jalen Reagor, you got to see him pan out. You got Devontae Smith drafted 10. We got to give him an opportunity. But Quez is on their butt, on their heels. He's making plays week in and week out, and it's been
I see
from
one
the
guy that's got
offseason.
major swag
Yeah.
and can break out versus a guy that's got no presence whatsoever.
Yeah, listen, I don't disagree with you. I'm saying the reason why it hasn't occurred right now.
I believe that has to be the case. Because one guy looks like he's ready to take off.
Yeah.
Okay. If I can defend Jalen a little bit, though, when the ball's in his hands, he makes good plays. We've talked about, right, if that's what you guys were comparing Quez to Jalen Reagor there.
No. So I'm just saying he should have an opportunity based on what he's done preseason, off-season, and these first few games. The big play guy that we have and the guy that's getting open consistently, making contested plays, showing up when he gets the ball in his hands is Quez. And he's doing it.
Jalen Reagor last game.
He did play 82% of the snaps. So at least the coaches see it, as you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now they got to do it. They have to get him the ball. Here's the question, though, for both of you guys, because you watch the tape. Quez, does he command the football in terms of physicality? Could you send him on a post? Can he get off the line, or is he a guy who can continually win?
Well, so there's going to be routes because of his size that he's going to get manhandled with. Right. Okay. So, but there's things that you can gradually get to that place. So with Quez, I'm not going to run him on things that are maybe, intermediate stuff like or short stuff like slants and like short ends and things. He can get beat up like that because he's so small and DBs can get after. But anything over 7 yards, he's going to win on, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
If I was the wide receiver coach, if I was Emory Moorhead.
Yeah, Aaron. Mm-hmm.
Aaron Moorhead. If I was the coach, the one thing I would work every day on, because I remember Devontae Adams when he came out of Fresno, and he was a second-round pick, and he was a 9th wide receiver taken. What separated Devontae and why he is what he is,
by the way,
it's all about his release. He's got 8 different releases. I mean, at least 8. But it depends on because he's not the fastest guy, so he's got to beat you off the line. So if I was I know Quez can accelerate the way you have to in this business to win down the field. To your point, Jason, I would be working on my releases every day to get off. Like because I think DBs, it's not going to be long before they're going to fear him. Right. And what they can do behind
and
him.
that would help your tight ends get open, right?
I think it would open up a lot of the field.
Yeah.
But I think if I would just be working with him on releases, types of releases, delayed releases, crossovers, you name it, all the different things, because that's how he's going to really dictate to the corner.
Yeah,
sure.
Because if you can't beat man coverage in this business, you can't play. So, but I believe he can, and I believe he can get a lot better at it. And the one thing that frustrates me, being an Eagle fan, watching the Eagles, is I want to see player development. Like, I don't see enough of that.
How long have we talked about that?
Yeah, man, for years.
Everybody can go draft first-round picks.
Yeah.
That's not hard. But can you develop Jordan Mailata? Can you develop players to become players? And that's what has been missing.
Yeah.
Whether it's Doug or this group or whatever.
So when Sirianni was interviewed, our understanding was they actually talked about that in the interview and how he knew that it was an issue for the front office. Why aren't the players developing?
Yeah.
And for something happened over the last couple of years with Peterson where you're like, okay, Josh Sweat developed and Mailata started to develop. But other than that, you scratch your head. Where are the guys where are the breakout stars that we're seeing now with Mailata, who clearly looks like he's on his way to being really good? But you need to see this. And Quez was a 6th-round pick. Now, he had maturity issues coming out of college. Where did he go to Southern Miss?
Yeah, Southern Miss. Okay. Yeah, he can fly at Southern Miss, though.
But right now, he looks like a guy, Jeff, that you have to get the football, and the coaches have to know that. They got the snaps ready. They got that right last week. But now they got to get him the football.
Just put him on the list of guys we're saying need to get the football. Offense.
Playmakers. The playmakers got to get the football.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this, Jason. I mean, you were around one of the great game planners that we've seen in Andy Reid, right? If you said, okay, Devontae, Quez, Goddard, okay, Miles Sanders, would you look at a game plan when it came out to you on Wednesday and go, boy, we're getting the ball to the right guys based on this game plan.
100%. There was always a pecking order. There was no ambiguity when it came to that with Coach Reed. Now you see the same pecking order. It's going to be Travis Kelce, it's going to be Tyreek Hill, and then it's going to be everybody else behind that. It's always a pecking order. When we were there, it was going to be, let's try to get Deshaun the ball. We're going to get, LaShawn McCoy the ball, and then everybody else is going to fall in after that. And there's always a pecking order. And if it was Coach Reed, he would bring motion in because these guys are smaller and get some misdirection, get them off the press. And we don't do that enough.
Right. I heard you guys, you and Quentin Michael talked about that on the Q&A show on Inside the Birds. Brian, you brought up development, which leads me to my next topic, because obviously the biggest player that needs development or to see development from is the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. And through 5 games, you've seen good, you've seen bad, you've seen good. And then even within one game last week, you saw 3 quarters of and then all of a sudden a really nice 4th quarter. We've kind of talked just now about what is the objective of the offense. What kind of offense is this, and how is it conducive to the quarterback's skill set? And I know it's been raised, we've talked about it on Inside the Birds, and I've heard Quentin Michael and Jason Avant talking about it too, is this college offense, which Brian, you talked about with us, is it purposely tailored to Jalen Hurts in order to get the most out of him right now? And are they letting him develop the way you need to develop and show yourself as an NFL QB in this league? Just
knowing Nick Sirianni, if you just track him, right, from the Chargers to the Colts to here, they had Phillip Rivers, pure pocket quarterback, a real NFL offense.
Right.
Like nothing that they're doing in this offense has any resemblance to anything they did in Indianapolis or with the Chargers. So you go, it just leads you to believe they're building this offense around Jalen's skill set, which in some ways makes sense.
Right.
And if you look at him, if you just looked at the last 3 games, against Dallas, he was not good. He did not trust his protection. He took off way too soon. And, he ended up just scrambling around. There was no offense. I thought he got better against Kansas City. I thought he stayed in there. I thought he made better reads, trusted his protection, stayed in the pocket, did better. They scored more points. Last week, I thought that he came alive in the last 30 seconds of the first half. He made 3 throws, 2 of them really good throws, one to Rager, one over the middle to Devontae. They got him into field goal range, and I thought that gave him a lift. And then he played better in the second half.
So I can understand why fans get frustrated sometimes when they hear mixed messages that can both be true. You just said it. A coach's job is to put a player in a position to succeed. And you hear all the time coaches say, and you've heard it here, I don't have a scheme. I've got players that I've got to scheme toward their strengths.
Yeah.
But what's also true, and Jay, I know you talked about this, is that if you're playing quarterback in the NFL and everything is schemed up for you, and you're at the line of scrimmage, and you're seeing something different than you thought you were going to see, you can't change the call. You can't have a coverage check. Everybody else around, you've got to stay within the framework because that's only what you're allowing to do. That's not going to help you develop as a quarterback, and it does seem like that's what's going on with the Eagles right now.
Well, that's the problem with college offense. College offense, and that's why Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Roethlisberger, these guys play forever, is because they're never challenged by the next crop of guys.
Right.
Because they, in the college game, they dumb it down to the point where it's a scan read left or right. They use the quarterback's athleticism. They never teach them the game the proper way. Now the NFL team has to incorporate a college offense in order to get this guy to have some value in the NFL.
Right.
So it just produces a player that at the ceiling could be a Pro Bowler, at the ceiling.
Right.
But they'll never be serious enough to compete for a championship.
It's interesting. Those are really good insights, Jason.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Jalen this summer. We were working out. He was working out in Morristown this year. And he said that, the only guy that's ever coached him, now not counting Nick here, but, with Doug Peterson and his staff, Lincoln Riley and his staff, and Nick Saban and his staff, he said the only guy that coached
Marty.
him. No, the only coach was Lincoln.
Oh, Lincoln, okay.
The only guy was Lincoln. And that's when he made a real jump as a college quarterback. He said he didn't learn anything last year. It was all scheme, do this, do that. But the feeling I get from Jalen, to your point though, Jeff, is he wants to be coached. He wants to be coached hard. Like, he wants to be taken serious. He doesn't want to be a college quarterback in an offense. He wants to be a real NFL quarterback. And so why not put him under center?
Exactly.
Play action.
We've been asking for it.
Yes.
The speedo routes that everybody in this league runs, Jason. Like, let him add those components to the offense.
Could you do both, though? Could you have him under center Like in a given game, could you do both?
Yes.
Under center and also in shotgun.
Definitely. I mean, almost every play you could be quarterback.
I feel like every
or
offense has
shotgun.
some under center.
You have it. It's just all about how much you do it. We need it and practicing it, right? So, and then there's the Lamar Jackson experience that's going on, like the experiment that's going on. Because Harbaugh said something very, very intriguing when he got drafted. He said, look, we knew that if we would draft Lamar Jackson, that everything about our offense would have to change and have to be catered toward him. But the other night, we talked about this on the Q&A show, is that to me it was a culmination of that the other night, because Lamar Jackson had ample opportunities in years past. He would have taken off in a heartbeat, but he stood in the pocket, stayed there, made plays, 442 yards passing, dominated the game with his arm. And it was, to me, it was, okay, the athletic quarterback, it was one of the better jobs from a guy that we thought would just be a college guy, finally getting to a place where, okay, I'm an NFL quarterback. And hopefully Jalen Hurts can get to that point.
I'm with you on
and
that,
how
Jason.
does this conversation come back to the same thing I always say? And people sometimes think if you're saying this, you're anti-Jalen Hurts.
No, we're not anti at all.
Lamar Jackson got that opportunity to show that development. Why? Where was he drafted?
Yeah.
First round.
Where was Jalen Hurts drafted?
Second round.
How many second-round picks are guaranteed anything? So when the Eagles shipped off Carson Wentz, and then we're looking at other quarterbacks and playing the flirtation game, and everybody said, this is just not fair to Jalen, my response would always be, this league has never, ever been fair to second-round picks. Jalen is not an exception. It sucks. He deserves it, but that's not me being anti-Jalen Hurts. It's the reality of this league.
Yeah.
But the reality, though, right now, though, is he's getting that opportunity.
Yeah, but only a year, Ball. That's my point. Is he's only getting a year.
We'll see. You know, I mean, they can flirt with whoever's out there, you know, in draft and capital and all that kind of stuff. But he gets a year. I mean, it might not be enough, but he's going to get a year for them to make a decision. And you really, if you're the 53rd pick, to your point, you really can't ask for anything more than that.
I
and
agree.
the one thing that everybody you have to love about Jalen, he's a great general. Like
he's a leader.
He's a leader.
Absolutely.
He's a stand-up guy. When he was terrible against Dallas, he said he was. Like he's going to give. If they pull off an upset tonight, he will give everybody else credit. If they get dumped on tonight, he'll take all the blame. Like, he knows his role. And it's actually refreshing to see.
Yeah, you want him to do well just because of the type of person he is.
Absolutely.
And do we need him more in the center? Do we need them implementing portions of an NFL offense? It's only going to help him.
I agree.
It's only going to help him. And
You're only going to learn about him if you give him the chance.
And you can't baby him in the entire time.
Right. Listen,
you just can't.
But Adam, just to be fair to the situation, we talk to people who think that this is not going, that unless he is absolutely exceptional, he's not going to be the quarterback next year. It's not fair, but it's just the way of life in the NFL. Maybe saying absolutely exceptional is a little high.
When
but
you and I were, like everyone, shocked at the Eagles drafted, traded out for Hurts, we didn't see that coming. No, we wanted to learn more about him, and as we polled teams, third or fourth round grades that they had. Now some people say, "Oh, Dak Prescott was a fourth round grade," no question. But no one saw Jalen Hurts as a potential superstar. They weren't really sure what he could be as a quarterback. But clearly, the Eagles to trade up. Howie Roseman, I know Jeffrey Lurie was involved in terms of them asking him, letting him know that they were going to do this. He signed off on it. Howie Roseman really saw something special in Jalen Hurts. So you guys have graded, you've watched him since he's been professional. You saw him in college. Do you see any kind of traits you could say, okay, this is what he can be in year 2 or 3, a top 15, an upper half quarterback? Do you see any of that?
He's got a very good arm. He looks like he can be accurate. We saw him bring a team back from behind on Sunday. That's something the Eagles were looking to see. Could he put a team on his back and bring him from behind? That was a good test last week against a quality defense. So that was encouraging. We got to see more touch on his passes, and we got to see him get in a position where he can make progressive reads.
Yeah, the thing that I want to see from Jalen in order to get to that point where you say his comp is probably Dak Prescott, right? Where Dak Prescott is, that's where you want to see Jalen Hurts in 2 years, right? If that's what you want to see. And in order to do that, you got to hit the throws when your feet are planted solid in the pocket and there's no pressure around you. You got to make those throws. Now, the ones where there's pressure in your face, I understand that. But the one against with Zach Ertz streaking down the middle of the field, and we've seen this multiple times where there's touchdowns left out. The play with Quez Watkins last week on the smash route and with the corner behind him. That's a basic throw that you got to make. Those things that you want to see him make every time. We know that he's a young player, but in order to grow, you have to hit some of those easy ones. Easy ones.
The one question I have, though, is I wonder how he's being coached. Like, I look at him pre-snap sometimes, Jason, right? And I go, why did he go to the 3-receiver side when he's got these guys off over here on 3rd and 5? Like, so how he's being programmed, to me, I'm curious. Like, because I don't know. And none of us know.
No, it's a fair question.
It'd be nice to hear. Like, is he being programmed the right way?
Right.
It's because coaching is a huge part of this.
It's not only him being evaluated this year. There's a new coaching staff, and I'm sure Jeffrey and Howie are taking a big look at that
as well.
All in tandem.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break because we want to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars, including the voice of the Eagles, Mr. Merrill Reese.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, welcome back to Inside the Birds pregame live. Look, we were talking about Jalen Hurts, and one thing we know that Jalen's going to see tonight is a lot of guys in his face as he faces the Buccaneers defense that is known for blitzing a lot. Todd Bowles, former Eagles defensive coordinator, former Temple standout, he and Bruce Arians there. They are the top blitzing team. They pressure at 40.2% of dropbacks by their opponents. On the other side, Jalen Hurts this year has been pressured on 23% of his dropbacks, even more than last year. And he's completing 59% of his passes against the blitz compared to 68% when he is not blitzed. Want to thank our intern, Zane Gonzalez, for pulling that data. And here's a really interesting nugget that Zane Gonzalez pulled for us. His time of release is basically the same when he's blitzed versus when he's not blitzed, right about 2.9 seconds, which kind of goes back to that whole college offense thing that even when he's not pressured, the ball's coming out quickly and going to whoever the first read is supposed to be as part of the scheme. But look, we know that data really doesn't matter. What he's going to see tonight is a lot of blitzing and probably from a lot of different players.
Yeah, when you get a guy like Todd Bowles that can just be a nightmare defensively with linebackers. Now, the thing, Levante David not being there helps us out a bit. Them getting JPP back last week hurts us a bit.
Yes.
Right? So, because you get natural pressure with him. But a guy that can stunt, a guy that can be multiple up front, a guy that can play man coverage. Now, they may not do as much with these guys they have out there. Mm-hmm. But this guy has been around the league for so long. He's a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator. And when it comes to blitzing, he's learned from one of the best ones that ever do it.
Yeah.
Right? So, this will be a test for Jalen Hurts. This is one of those games, if he plays well, it can win a lot of people over.
So Baldy talked about Quez Watkins when Richard Sherman's out there. Did you see what Deshaun Jackson did to the Bucs? Deshaun should have had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Okay, Matthew Stafford missed him wide open, hit him on a bomb, okay?
Yeah.
So I love the points that you guys made. I am going after Richard Sherman. You don't have to throw the ball 50 times, unless you're behind, obviously, a lot.
Right.
But when you do throw it, attack the guy. Jamel Dean is a good nickel corner who's got to start. Ross Cockrell, who's been on like 6 teams, he's got to have to be the 3rd corner. And
He's a Duke guy, Adam.
Okay. Sorry. All right,
there you go.
Easy.
Yeah, he might be smart, but he's been with 5 teams. So you were with a couple
we got
teams
Michigan Duke on this side of the aisle, that side of the aisle over there. That's a good
Sure.
basketball conversation from the 90s right there.
That is true.
Yeah.
Long shorts.
I think that, not all blitzes are the same.
Correct.
So we just put them in a category. But, when you watch Todd Bowles, I mean, he drops defensive tackles out to rob the middle of the field. He'll bring overloads. Shaq Barrett can beat anybody one-on-one and has already this year and has over the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they have a lot of different ways. I mean, Devin White got 9 sacks last year.
Yeah.
So Devin White, he's a locomotive, man. I mean, he's a 4-4 guy, and, he'll hit those A-gaps, and he'll time it without tipping it off. Mm-hmm. So what I'm curious to see, Jason, in evaluating the quarterback tonight under this type of blitz, as soon as he sees it, is he going to just go, or is he going to trust the protection to handle the pressures?
Right.
Whether it's a gap, whether it's off the edge, can Gainwell get out there, or is he just going to feel it and go?
What we've seen is what Jeff said, is that the coaches in this situation usually take the ball out of his hands, Baldy. They usually get Gainwell really quick, Quez really quick, Jalen Reagor really quick to try to circumvent or prevent.
But that's a horizontal offense.
It's a horizontal, but this is when you have a guy like this that may not be comfortable with this type of pressure, and what he's seeing, the quarterback is going to take the offense coordinator is going to take the reins back and call these quick passes, and a lot of times they're out of balance sometimes,
but
because
he's
not the one.
Okay, let's say you come out with a quick game, which we've seen a lot.
They will do it tonight.
If he's accurate, first quarter, do you expand the pass game? Okay, he's handling this. Let's ask him to do a little bit more. Would you feed him a little bit more?
Always, right? So remember, when you're at the beginning of the game, you're going to script those plays in order to get the ball out of his hand, get him comfortable, all of those things. The problem is that when the game settles in and the defense knows what you're going to do now all the scripted plays are going, and now you got to get back to your regular offense. Right. And he has to drop back at times and those things. Will he be able to pick it up like Baldy is saying? And if he can do it, it bodes well for his for a lot of belief around the city for Jalen Hurts.
Definitely.
We have given, and rightfully so, a lot of credit to Todd Bowles. But I always believe that the game is in the coordinator's hands. So, and the good coordinators are in the heads of the other coordinators. So Nick Sirianni against Todd Bowles. Like, for example, I don't see the Eagles just use basic screens. Like, it frustrates me, but I don't see like 3-count screens. I mean, they won a Super Bowl running screens. So, and getting to a Super Bowl. So, like, to me, like, can you anticipate Todd Bowles' overload pressures? Can you screen into it and catch them? Because if you put we've seen Miles Sanders. Like, he's got 5 touchdowns at 50 yards or more. Like, the guy's a home run hitter, but we haven't seen him ever get in a situation once this year where he can take off and go. So, to me, like, part of what I have fun doing is, like, what's Nick thinking about? Because I don't see a plan setting up plays.
Right.
I know we can all call these bubble screens, Jason, get the ball out. I get that to a degree. But this is a game where tonight you've got a championship-level defensive coordinator. Let me see something from this coach and staff and play caller that can match wits with him. Because one thing, you could say whatever you wanted about Doug Peterson, but one thing about Doug was he was a great collaborator. He took information during games from a lot of people. Now, I'm not sure exactly what happened last year, but you listened to him during just the Super Bowl game, taking it from Stoutland and taking it from, from Frank and the whole group, up to the Philly special play. Like, he took all that to get the right play out. I want to see something from Nick that says, all right, I can do this too.
I'm in your league. Yeah, definitely.
One thing I want to add, I talked to the Niners about this when they did advance on the Eagles. They were shocked at how much speed the Eagles had. And then they played them. They were like, wow, they didn't really use their speed.
They don't use their speed.
And that's the problem, and Baldy's alluding to it. You're given all this talent. Use it. You've got Kenny Gainwell. This staff, we know, Jeff and I know this for a fact. They wanted him badly. They pounded the table for the guy. They got him. Okay, they've got him the ball, but they haven't done anything special with him. We were talking to his head coach, Ryan Silverfield from Memphis. Silverfield absolutely swore that they were going to have Sanders and Gainwell on the field at the same time. He goes, you got to do pony with these guys. He goes, because if I'm calling a defense, I'm like, what do? They don't do that. So, as Baldy said, start using this talent that you've been given.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, we thank you again for tuning in to Inside the Birds pregame live with Jeff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, Jason Avant, and our special guest, Brian Baldinger. And now let's hear from our great sponsors, our friends at Rivers Casino.
This is my city. This is a city that knows how to play. A city that's in it for the win. So I go to the place that gets that. Where they know how Philly likes to play. And where I know my seat is always ready. This is my place.
All right, as we start hour 2 of Inside the Birds pregame live, we're going to head to our special session with former Eagle safety Quentin Michael. It's called Q's Views, and in this episode we talk about, well, what you do when the GOAT comes to town. All right, we are here with former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quentin Michael. And Q, I hate to age you a little bit, but you played against Tom Brady. You've been retired for quite a while now. Tom Brady is here tonight to face the Philadelphia Eagles. This guy is an ageless wonder. Does it like register with you that he's still playing and you've been retired for a while?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, when you think about it, I remember watching him when I was in college, winning his first Super Bowl, and then, coming into the league, and then I'm out, and now he's still there and still winning championships. It's really an amazing thing. Just that in itself, just longevity wise, that's just amazing. But, also what he's been able to do on the football field and off, and, he's definitely living a blessed life.
When you've prepared for him in the past and looking at what he's doing now, what's the number one thing when you're facing Tom Brady you have to do correctly or you have to execute well as a defense?
I think the biggest thing is the ball's coming out fast. Everyone's talked about it. I remember Trent Cole talking to him, the D-line coach when we played him. First thing he remember talking to him, and the first thing he said is, listen, if you don't get there in 2.8 seconds, don't even worry about it. Like, you have to get there or the ball's coming out. So that's really the most important thing, is understanding if you do choose to bring pressure, you have to really be smart about when you do it. You have to take away his first, second read. So, if you're going to bring pressure, you need to have someone on his outlet. I would even put a person man-to-man on whoever his outlet would be in certain formations, just to try to make him, pull the ball down and then maybe, get enough time to get some pressure on him.
Yeah, I remember those Brady years in New England when he had Randy Moss and, of course, Wes Welker and a pretty good offense. But when you look at what he's got now with Antonio Brown and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk, Leonard Fournette, this is probably the best set of weapons that he's played with in his entire career. As a person who played defense, what do you do here? I mean, what is the overall game plan or philosophy?
Yeah, it's a tough one. To me, when you face teams like this, which I feel it's basically an all-star team on offense. I think the biggest thing is, again, pick and choose when you choose to add additional pressure. You have to stop the run, though, because if you don't stop the run, obviously you don't want to have Brady back there dropping back all game, but you can't have Brady dropping back all game and also dealing with the running game, because then it's going to make for a long night. So my philosophy would be, first of all, let's stack the run. Let's take care of the run, and then, add pressure when we need to. Make sure we try to, get and limit his access to the outlet routes and the quick throws, and see where we are from there. And then if we do get a turnover, no matter where it is, we have to try to score the ball. Like, we have to do whatever we can to get that ball in the end zone. That's what I would say.
So let's attack the first part of that, stopping the run. Obviously, the Eagles did a better job of it, still not perfect, but a better job of it against the Carolina Panthers, who did not have Christian McCaffrey. But what did you see that stood out in their tape on why they were able to be better defensively?
Yeah, to me, the biggest thing is they overloaded the fronts. They use under fronts, they use 5-man fronts, and that allowed the linebackers to run more freely. And that's kind of what they're built to do. They're smaller guys. Avery's a big guy. Bradley, I think, is a big guy. And they were able to come downhill, but particularly Alex Singleton. I mean, he had 14 tackles, 10 solo tackles. Having those guys in front in that odd front, taking 2 blocks and getting penetration and holding their man where they are, allowed him to run more freely and be more active in the run game. And really, that's probably moving forward, probably got to be the way this defense will work.
Patriots are not a heavy run team. Do you think that they will try to run the ball more tonight? Or is there something about the way the Eagles play defense that you think caters really well to Tom Brady in that passing game that they'll try to exploit?
Yeah, I think just knowing Bruce Arians, knowing Tom Brady, Byron Leftwich, I think they're going to come out and be ready to throw the ball. I think they're going to pick and choose when they run. They already know that the run. I think the Eagles' run defense is pretty stout, and our weakest link is our in the passing game, our linebackers and our secondary so far. So I would imagine they're going to run just a little bit. They're probably going to run just enough to keep the defense honest, but they're really going to come in here and try to throw the ball all over the field. They're going to take some deep shots with Godwin, double moves with AB. They're going to work over the middle with our linebacking crew. Even though Gronkowski's not playing tonight, I still think that they're going to try to utilize the linebackers through the middle of the defense and try to take advantage of our linebackers and safeties. But I think it's going to be a tough go for this defense. But if they were ever ready, I think after having a game like last week, I think it's giving them some confidence and making them feel a little bit better about tonight. Sorry.
On the flip side, you talked about maybe wanting to limit the possessions from Tampa, so maybe playing more ball control offense. Do you think that this offense right now, which seems to lack an identity, will have the ability to play that ball control offense and not turn the ball over or not have 3 and outs?
Yeah, they haven't shown it so far, and that's really the most troubling thing. You're trying to find your way. You're trying to, I think at times trying to guess and try to guess what defense they're in, try to guess the coverages, try to do too much screen game and getting, a little bit too cute in the offense. I think that's definitely not going to work against a team like this. It hasn't worked against Dallas. It hasn't worked against Kansas City. You have to have an identity, and I think right now the identity of this team needs to be we need to run the ball, control the line of scrimmage, and then go from there. And then you pick and choose when you throw and pick and choose when you do screens. But, without running the ball first and establishing the run, establishing the line of scrimmage, it's going to be for a tough day. So I feel like we've all been saying it all week. All year, really. Just run the ball, because it's not about just running the run. It's about setting the mindset of, this is what we're going to do. This is who we are. And it also says something to the defense. When you're coming up to the line of scrimmage as a secondary player or linebacker, and you don't have to worry about run, now that becomes 7-on-7 in the back end. And that's why we're seeing our receiving core having so much trouble getting separation from the ball. That's why we see so many rub routes. That's why we see things of that, because we're trying to manufacture these schemes instead of just saying, let's go old school, let's run the ball and see where we are from there.
All right, it's time. You give me your prediction, and I will try not to duck. Tell me what's going to happen tonight.
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I do think that we can, if we run the ball and we stick to it, I think that we can score on this defense. I don't think we're coming out on top, though. I think I'm going to say it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'll say 34-21 Buccaneers.
All right, there you have it. Buccaneers win 34-21. And those are Q's views with former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quentin Michael. Thanks, Q.
No problem.
All right, great stuff as always from former Eagles safety Quentin Michael, one half of the acclaimed Q&A show with Jason Avant on the Inside the Birds platform. So happy to have them part of the show. Inside the Birds is back here. Also back is Public Square and Rebel Hill. The team of James and Zach are back behind the controls, bringing Inside the Birds to you in high definition with great graphics, videos, and more. Contact Public Square Media and Rebel Hill Productions to produce your webcast, podcast, live show, or anything else that you can dream of. This team can bring it to life. All right, let's get back into this matchup as the Eagles will be taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tonight at the Link. I got to say, it's kind of like it's depressing where you kind of listen to the chatter out there, and you would always love to be in the position where even if it's an upset or even if they're the favorite, you got a chance. You're trying to do the Rocky thing here. There's like almost nobody who I've heard who's not out of their mind say that they think the Eagles are going to win tonight.
It'd be nice to see like a Jalen Reagor take the opening kickoff 101 yards.
Wouldn't it?
Like just start something like that. Like get the crowd into it. Like just even the block pump by TJ last week. I mean, it was really well designed. Mm-hmm. Sean Bradley. I mean, it was timely. It changed the game. Like those type of things you have to make happen.
Absolutely. Now, some of those things we saw last week, big plays from Big Play Slay. The cornerback who likes to go by the name of Slay, made more than one big play last week. He had 2 of the team's 3 interceptions. We talked about what Jonathan Gannon did with them, being able to be a little bit more aggressive, play a little bit more man. I meant to ask you guys, when we were talking about zone versus man, from an analytics standpoint, if you're playing 2-man, right, 2 deep safeties, man underneath, that's man?
Yes.
You wouldn't, even though the safeties are sort of playing a zone?
It's 2-man.
What if you're playing half man on one side or zone on one side, man on the next? What is that? Man or zone?
Most of the time it's going to be a man cut. It's some version of man. When you're playing man, it's man.
Okay.
Yeah.
No matter what. If you're playing any form of man, it's going to be called man coverage.
But even like, even if you're running cover 3, like at a certain depth, the zone becomes man.
Right. Yeah.
Like you need,
Within that zone, you got to cover.
Of course.
You got to match up.
Yeah.
There's matchup zones. I mean, even Slay's first interception, they were trying to high-low him, and he's baiting Darnold to throw it, to throw the flat. He's baiting him. He's just looking to make a play.
Yeah.
And so if he gave up the play over the top, he was going to give it up.
Right.
He was just hoping to jump it on the flat, and Darnold threw it over his head, and he backed up, he made the play. But that's what great corners can do. They see the game, they see the field, they see the route combination coming at him, and he made a great play. I mean, I'm not sure why Darnold thought he was going to get it over his head, but
well, the thing is that Jonathan Gannon, Rodney McLeod being back, was able to rock the safeties. We haven't seen it a bunch where the guys were coming out of the sky. It was 2-1, it was 3, it was 4. He was doing it a bunch, and he just got confused in that moment because it looked like cover 3 at the snap.
right.
What we were told, Jason, Jeff and I in the spring, was that Gannon believes in pre-snap disguise. Now, we saw it in week 1, then I don't know what happened, and then we saw it last week. So, Baldy, Brady's seen everything. You're not going to fool him.
Yeah.
So is it just a matter of somehow, is it line game, stunts, twists? What do you do to try to at least win in the first 2 seconds so your corners don't have to hold for 5 seconds?
There's really no one thing you can do, Adam.
Okay.
What you have to do against this Bucs offense is you got to win. You got to get stops. That's what it comes. Stops, and like Jason said earlier, you can't give them touchdowns. If you can force them into field goals and stops, and get yourself a change of possession, whether it's by downs, a fumble. We've seen Ronald Jones put the ball on the ground, whatever.
That's true.
If you can get that to happen, and just limit the possessions. If you give Brady 12 possessions, he's going to score in 6.
Right.
He's scoring in 6 of them. Right. So you got to limit the possessions. I mean, this is how you have to think about it, right? If you can limit them to 9 possessions, if you could take 1 away, if you can get 2 stops, and force them into field goals, I mean, you can keep the score, maybe 24 points. Mm-hmm. You can make it a game.
Yeah. You can't have happen what Kansas City happened, which is they scored a touchdown in every single possession except one. They got the turnover. But every other possession was a touchdown. So red zone defense.
But the problem with Kansas City is, I understand Tyreek Hill, but he still beat you over the top, even with it.
Yeah.
But to me, those plays that Mahomes makes, they're kind of like he's willing to miss on those plays to make those plays. He just makes a lot of them at the end of games to win games. But you've got to take something away. So you can't give Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You can't give him the lanes that you gave him.
Oh man, they were enormous.
You can't do it.
Well,
he's not that good.
Right.
You make him earn those. So that was my problem with that game plan.
Yeah, cover 2, and they were basically cover 2 the entire game, that game, and because they were afraid of the Chiefs' weapons, they were afraid of Patrick Mahomes, let's try to keep him in front. What that does is it allowed throwing lanes underneath, which we saw Tyreek Hill catch one about 15 yards, run for the rest, and you have the running lanes with Helaire. The same thing will be open tonight. The thing that we would that's in our favor is that the Bucs don't like to run it much, right? The Eagles and the Bucs, both teams are averaging 4 yards a carry, but they don't run it. They don't run it a bunch because they have so many other weapons. So we'll see if Fournette and the guys can't get some running lanes, which will be there again tonight.
I saw Andy Reid run the ball 25 times, and I know Andy Reid does not want to run the ball 25 times. So maybe tonight is a night where Leonard Fournette or Ronald Jones or whoever is headed for an increase in reps that they wouldn't ordinarily see.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of cover 2. We'll see a lot of it.
So where's the – because, all right, let's look at how they did last week. Here's how they can get you. Antonio Brown and Mike Evans both had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. And yet Chris Godwin was the leader in targets with 11, and he caught 7 balls for 70 yards. I mean, it's amazing because Robert Gronkowski was actually having a really nice start before he got hurt. It's hard to believe that all 4 of these guys are getting the balls, but they are. So when you look at what the Eagles are doing, where's the pressure? Is it on Slay and Nelson? Is it Maddox on the inside? Like, who's going to have to really, as you guys said, get the stops? Who's going to have to tackle well? Who's going to have to cover well? Who's the spotlight on?
The game to me is going to be on the D-line and the linebackers. Are you going to be able to get these guys down? The cornerbacks keep the ball in front and make the tackle. But most of all is going to be on the linebackers and the D-line in order to get these guys down. And we know when you have an offense as potent as these guys are, our linebackers struggle because they're off the ball, trying to stop the deep pass and all those things. Running up, making tackles is not their best thing. So we'll see how that goes.
I think Brady will. I mean, he could do anything he wants to do. I mean, he just has so much at his disposal. But it's hard for me to believe that he's just not going to exploit the middle of this field with these linebackers.
Yeah.
Whether it's just crossing routes or just curls into the middle and just make these linebackers, they don't get any depth. They line up deep, but they just don't really, the passing game just, they'll make a lot. Singleton will make 10 tackles, but they just don't play the passing game. So it's hard for me to believe whether it's O.J. Howard or Cameron Braid or Goddard in the slot, whatever. He's not going to exploit the middle of the field. Yeah. Those are the easiest throws.
And the Eagles in the middle field, Jeff, we're just going to say that's where Tyreek Hill got him. Other receivers have gotten him. Last week they did a good job. Deebo Samuel crushed them on it. And that's where you don't have guys who could cover or physical. The linebackers also, they need to get more physical. Anyone comes in your area, be a little bit
put
physical.
A hit on him.
Yeah.
I wonder about Giovanni Bernard, a sneaky kind of weapon tonight, because when you play a lot of zone, right, the flats you tend to be able to exploit depending on the looks.
Those backs have option routes. They're in cahoots with the quarterback because the quarterback simply isn't going to allow you to run a wrong route. I saw Aaron Rodgers get on Lazard last week, and sometimes the guy runs a wrong route, and the quarterback goes someplace else with the ball. Rodgers was so frustrated, and Brady's done the same thing. He was so frustrated by Lazard, he just took the ball and threw it into the ground. He didn't even try to make a play.
I remember.
He just said, "I'm making a statement and a point right here.
Yeah,
we need this guy. You can't be wrong." And I've seen Brady do that to Edelman before. They'll make a statement that if you're the back and you're Gio Bernard, and Brady thinks you're running Texas and you think you're running it out, and you make that wrong mistake and it ends up like an interception like it did early last year when he first, Brady's going to let you know. You don't have to go through Arians. Brady's going to let you know.
Sure. Real quick, I want to bring up Davion Taylor because you talked about linebackers and across the middle. He played a lot last week, probably the most that he has played in his career, which isn't a lot. He's only year 2 and he's missed a lot of games. But you saw some athleticism, some speed, but he is a guy who's played very little football in his life. Is this too dangerous of an environment to now throw him on the field against these weapons and that quarterback?
I don't think that you have anything to lose. What do you have to lose? Playing Eric Wilson and Singleton, and we know what those guys are good football players, but they're more geared towards special team players and backups. So if you got a younger guy that has more of a ceiling, why not give him this opportunity in this time to figure out if he can play or not? And the one thing that I do know, guys that start on special teams, there's a lot of great players like Davion. I'm not saying he's a great player, but start on special teams.
Right.
And because when you start learning how to filter through all of those bodies running down full speed, it translates over into defense. And so I'm excited to see him play tonight. Do I think that he's going to do great versus O.J. Howard? And do I think he's going to do great for Leonard Fournette? I don't think that any of our middle of the field players are going to do great versus Tom Brady.
Right.
But I would like to see his growth and development against this type of player tonight.
What did you guys see last week?
Well, he was a confusing draft pick to me. I mean, he played at Colorado. They play this double cloud thing, in college. There's really no position. You're out there over the slot. You're in space. You're not really doing anything.
Yeah.
Just running, chasing, and running. So I thought it was going to be a difficult transition for him into a position. Okay, so if you want to have him on off the ball inside linebacker, there's so many things. I mean, whether it's your run fits, whether it's your leverage, whether it's getting drops, whether it's guys coming into your zone and picking them up and how quickly you see it, whether it's pre-snap motion and where are your eyes. It's a difficult game. It's a difficult game for any young linebacker, but especially one that doesn't look like he's particularly instinctive.
What we were hearing on him, guys, before that draft was he had 5th and 6th round grades from other teams, and when he was taken the 3rd round, we were shocked, and then we were learning that he didn't play a lot of football, as you were talking about. So Jeff, that's
By the way, let's
concern about putting him out there.
Yeah, let's
That
flash
sounds
back.
like- that
We're
sounds like
already
us.
shocked by Jalen Hurts in the second round, and then the Eagles come back with bam, Davion Taylor in the third round, and we're doing the whole.
we know
like,
why,
well,
because Jim
you know,
Well, I
Schwartz,
mean,
Jim
why
Schwartz
don't
won
you
a
just start
linebacker
with-
and he got one.
Why don't you just start with Justin Jefferson in the first round?
well, I mean, yes.
Like, how do you pass on that
At least
guy?
you could say, though, you had heard of Jalen Reagor, and there was a first to second round
All right.
grade on him. When
Yeah.
they picked Davion Taylor, everybody was, we're getting calls from people saying, well, Davion Taylor.
We were shocked,
Well, I've had people tell me from other teams that they had him as a priority free agent, an undrafted free agent, because of
see
his
why.
lack of experience.
It's a one-year player.
Great kid, just total lack of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he did make progress, though, before the series of calf injuries. They were like, well, okay.
he can run.
He
Yep.
could- and he's going to be one of the, they feel is their best special teams player in terms of speed, but the calf injury set him back. And tonight is probably not the night to play him 50% of the snaps, but it's not like they have anyone who's proven themselves. We know that Singleton is a tackling machine,
Right.
But Brady's going to go after that. It's going to be interesting to see what Jonathan Gannon has for his guys tonight.
It will be. It is a great night here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. Already Eagles fans are starting to pile in through the doors. Here's what I love about Eagles fans, right? And maybe this is another, I don't get to see enough cities anymore. I'm not on the road, but you'll see people walking around in like Clyde Simmons jerseys.
I saw a Selleck jersey tonight, by
You
the
saw
way.
a Selleck
Yeah.
jersey. Sometimes you'll see like a Detmer jersey. You'll still see an AJ
Number
Feely.
11,
It
right.
doesn't even have to be like someone who's a star. Everybody
Wait,
just
Corey or Ty, though?
it could be either or.
Yeah.
Even see some Dorenbos jerseys every
46.
once in a while because of a great story he was. That's what I love about the throwback nature of the Eagle fan. They never forget their heroes, and obviously you see a lot of those jerseys here
Steve
tonight.
Kreftley, number 84. Come on.
And you know you're having a good show when in the middle of the show you get one of these delivered to
like
you.
that.
So thanks to our friends
Well,
at
he was 62.
What's in there?
our production
62.
friends.
What's in
That's
there?
for me to know and everybody to be guessing.
It's not milk, is it?
It's good. No, it's
I
certainly
mean,
not
it is
milk.
game day. I mean,
Looks good, man. Looks good.
I had a pregame somewhere, right?
Exactly.
Might as well pregame on the Inside the Birds pregame live. Let's get back to football. We'll talk a little bit about the Eagles' offense, specifically the offensive line, where, unlike last year, they've got a ton of movement up front, but they've been able to hold their own. And for the third straight game, Andre Dillard is going to play left tackle. We're going to get Jordan Mailata at right tackle as that kind of musical chairs things goes on right now. And, of course, Landon Dickerson, as a rookie, has been getting starts at left guard now. And Jack Driscoll will be at right guard. Jason Kelsey does you ever see the meme? John Travolta walks into the room. I think it was from what Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction, where he walks
Fiction,
into
yeah.
the room and he looks around like, what's going on? That's Jason Kelsey. He's like the only guy who's supposed
Once
to be
again,
where he
same
is.
as last year. Yeah.
But let's talk about Dillard because I think a lot of people had nightmarish scenarios for him when it turned out he had to start at left tackle. He held his own. He's been playing well. I guess my biggest question is two things with him. He came here with a reputation for not really being great against bull rushes, not being able to answer that call against stronger guys. And I feel like the first 2 or 3 games he's played here, he has not faced the level of kind of nasty bull rush guys that the Buccaneers are going to bring, right?
Well,
and
he
then,
comes out of Washington State. I mean,
Well,
they
I know,
don't
that's
have
part of
those
the
type of
offense.
players.
Standing
in
up
Pac-12.
all the time.
right.
You know, so it's not you can only block who's in front of you.
I agree.
Look, Brian Burns is an elite player in Carolina, and he was invisible last week. And part of that was Andre Dillard. Now,
That
is
was
he-
my next question. Is it Dillard or is it this offense that's getting it out so quick that he doesn't have to
That
hold
helps.
those blocks? Okay.
But when Jalen has held it, even like in the last 30 seconds last week, he held up good. I mean, he's a better pass blocker than run blocker. But nobody can sit there and say that Andre Dillard looks like a bust these last 3 weeks. He's looked like a very quality player. You know, and they've got decisions when and if Lane comes back, what they want to do. But I think it's been good to see Dillard play. I'm glad he's still here. There was no competition in the battle. I mean, Jordan Mailata was just so much better. In fact, at the end of the game last week, the Eagles ran the ball to run out the clock, and they ran left, and they put Mailata at left tight end, so they went unbalanced. And so when you saw Mailata next to Dillard, you're like, it looks like, looks like Andre the Giant, next to a running back. I mean, he's just so much bigger than Dillard.
Well, let's on Mailata, because we haven't talked to you about Mailata yet. You saw him in 18, right? The guy's learning how to play football, just football. You see him now. How good can he be?
He can be as good as anybody in the league. Yeah, he can be Tyron Smith. He can be what Jason Peters was. He can be what
Trent Williams.
Trent Williams is or has been. I mean, he can be that level because of his athletic ability. He's not on the ground. He has unusual power. He's playing at 381. He likes to play heavier. He feels better.
It was over 400, we're told. Actually, 405 was his highest weight in training camp. No, the offseason. Yeah.
I saw him pin a scale. I saw him pin a scale. That went up to a certain level.
How can he move like this? That size.
They make scales.
Right?
Well, he's 20. He's 23, 24 years old. He's got rare genetics. But if you put him out there, if you put him at tight end, he could run routes like a tight end. Like he runs very, very well. You see him out there in the perimeter. Like he's very light on his feet for a guy that size. But when he hits people, he moves people and he plays with the chip. So in the run, that's what was so confusing about the start of this season. Why you wouldn't run behind him and Seumalo. Like there wasn't many guys, including everybody in Dallas, that could stay in front of that guy.
Right.
And Dallas is Dallas has got great speed, but they're not a big defense. And I thought they could take advantage of the size up front, and they never tried.
Sure. And it's funny you brought up that unbalanced line because I've said for a while, going into the year, and Jason, I know you said, Landon Dickerson's going to get on the field at some point, whether it's injury or just talent. And I always pictured a left side of the line with a 385-pound Mailata and a 355-pound Dickerson as your left side of the line. That's like a herd of buffalo right there. And yet we haven't seen it yet because now Jordan got hurt. Dickerson was at right guard. He moved to left. Now Jordan's at right tackle. But eventually, we're probably going to see that left side of the line be Mailata and Dickerson.
It probably won't be until next year, but we probably will see it. So
I think Mailata will eventually go back to left tackle.
He'll go back to left tackle.
But Landon was my favorite lineman coming out of the draft. It wasn't close. Like he's still rehabilitating.
Yeah.
So he's only 10 months into this rehabilitation, so he's still getting stronger. And his legs are still getting better. Like he can run, he can really run. You haven't seen that yet. He's been a little slow in pass protection. Just trying to get his feet underneath him and see the speed. I think that's one player. First of all, he wants to be great. He's got the talent to be great. I think he could be a Pro Bowl center or guard. So I think that's one guy to just watch as the season goes on, to see the development and to see some of the punishing blocks and some of the physicality. We haven't seen a lot of it yet, but it's coming.
Well, you got to run the ball in order to get the physicality.
You do. Sorry. But
I hear some Brandon Staley in here.
But you can stone guys to the line.
Yeah.
Like he's capable of just stoning them at the line.
Yeah.
And just keeping guys off the quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Adam, I wanted to ask you, knowing the Eagles front office as we do, Andre Dillard's going to go back to being a backup at some point.
Yeah.
And probably before the trade deadline. What do they do?
I don't see them trade. First of all, because the reason why they fended off any team that called for Dillard before the season was because of what's happened.
Right.
They don't. I know the Raven Clark's there, but quite frankly, not that you obviously want Lane Johnson to come back, but if it's another month, then it's another month. Keep playing Dillard. He continues to play very high-level football. I know one team that would have offered a fifth if the Eagles were willing to listen, but the Eagles were not willing to listen.
Right.
They're getting a third-round pick for him.
But I wouldn't
do it for fifth.
No.
In March, when you could trade him after this trade deadline at early November, I wouldn't take anything less than a third. If he continues to play at this level, as you guys are outlining, you can't find left tackles. We mentioned Carolina was looking. There were like 4 or 5 teams, I was told, right before the cut down to 53, they were calling for left tackles. Why? You can't find them.
Chicago.
Look at Chicago having to start Jason Peters. And they don't have that. Tevin Jenkins is hurt.
He's their fifth. He's their fifth left tackle. That they tried this year.
So no, you're right. I don't trade him for less than a third. I don't listen for less than a third.
Yeah. And I think that, look, there's probably an argument to be made, and then I don't know, you could make it to Howie, but there's probably an argument to be made that even if you get a decent offer, you still hold on to him because you've seen this line suffer from a lack of depth. And you would, I don't even mean for the rest of this year, but even for next year.
The funny thing is they thought this offseason, they're probably right, that they were at 10 or 11 deep. Because Dillard would be part of that, but he hadn't really played and he hadn't shown enough yet.
Right.
If you could just get everybody back, but now Seumalo's out for the season. We're not sure when Brooks exactly is going to be back. It'll be sometime during the second half of the season. But trading Dillard, absolutely no way.
Driscoll's played well.
Yeah, what do you think
played
of him?
well. I like Jack. He's got flexibility to him. He can play guard or tackle. But, even when he's at tackle, like he looks undersized, which he is, but he's still an effective player. Like he doesn't get beat quick.
Right.
And so he's very smart.
He's a technical dude.
And he's a guy that, he can, I think he's a backup player. but he's a guy that can play. He can start. He can finish games. He can come off the bench. Like, he's got real value. And I think Nate Herbig is going to be, like, he's reshaped his body this year. He was way too heavy. You know, he's a Hawaiian, and sometimes their eating habits aren't the best. But he's very smart. I mean, you don't go to Stanford and not. And then, he wants to, like, I think he can play center or guard. Mm-hmm. But he's a guy that I think you can really develop and build with. Mm-hmm. Like, he could be a solid 7th guy.
Sure. I can hear Stoutland in those coaches' meetings about Driscoll, Herbig, Mulata. And
what would he say?
And it's so well. He loved Driscoll. First of all, he loved Driscoll.
Like his son?
Well, to me, Driscoll is one of his favorites, just because Driscoll understood the game so well for being so young and playing at Auburn, and he didn't have to coach like some simple things that he had to coach Mulata with, because Mulata didn't have the experience. Mm-hmm. Last year when I was there, you send a TE or a stun at Mulata, he would get confused, or if he was in combination with the running back or something like that was a fine detail of playing a position, it would confuse him. But somewhere along between now and then, the light has just turned on for him, and he's turned the corner. And what he did to Dillard this offseason, as far as that competition, it was over in a week. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to see this group.
Jay, I know you were halfway kidding, sort of. You mentioned in passing the physicality standpoint of running the ball, but you look at this offensive line.
Yeah,
it's huge. It's enormous. I look at Dallas and I see a lot of playmakers on the field, right? Yeah. I see CeeDee Lamb. We talked about Gallup, of course, Amari Cooper, right? I see tight ends, Dalton Schultz catching the ball, Blake Jarwin catching the ball. Mm-hmm. Zeke Elliott has had over 100 yards, I think, in each of his last 3 games. They still stay honest with their offense and run the ball, and they have that physical element to their running game.
There's always more plays when you can extend the drive, right? There's always more plays to gain. So you're still going to be able to get guys the ball in the passing game if you're making first downs and running in your effective running team. It opens so much up in the passing game. And at some point, every winning team has to run the football. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't have to be, the Ravens where you're number 1 in the league in rushing. You don't have to be that team. Right. But when the game is on the line, will you be able to run it? And that's what Tampa was able to do last year. Right. And every team that won a Super Bowl, they can run it when they need to run it. And we have to take some of the pressure off Jalen Hurts and start doing it, because we're effective at running it. We just don't do it enough.
It's interesting because they didn't run Jalen at all last week until the 4th quarter.
Yep.
And then they went right at Hassan Reddick.
Yep.
And they got a couple of read options. And I was just wondering, okay, these ends are really fast, which means if they go one direction, they're really fast that direction.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like Burns and Reddick are. And, they finally called it, and it was really good. They got first downs out of it. Mm-hmm. I was just, blown away. Why wouldn't you run Jalen like that?
And by the way, I think both read option plays they ran in the 4th quarter were preceded by a Miles Sanders run or a running back run. So they set him up by making you think you're actually going to run the ball, and then as soon as you just mentioned, you see the crash defender, Hurts to the outside, but you got to set that up by running.
I would run that at Shaq Barrett tonight. I'd like to just see if he wants to, if he's taking the back and if they're set up. I'm sure Todd's reviewing all of the read option rules.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they've rehearsed it all week. They still have to go stop it. I mean, Carolina. The one thing about Matt Rule and Phil Snow coming out of Baylor, they saw Big 12 offenses every week. I didn't think they would have any problem with that play. Mm-hmm. But they had problems with the play.
Right.
We didn't run it all game. Yeah.
Real quick on this offensive line, because we know about Tampa Bay's pass rush. We've talked about guys like Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul. Don't think we've devoted enough time to some underrated guys like Vita Vea, one of their interior linemen, maybe one of the best in the league. I think he's probably underrated. People don't know who he is. He's an amazing athlete. And they also have this rookie, Joe Tryon. So Baldy, tell me about these two guys in particular and what they do well.
Well, you can't single block Vita Vea.
Yeah.
He's a Polynesian, tsunami. He's got rare power.
Yeah.
And he's a good. He crushes the pocket. He gets on your edge, and there's nothing. If he gets on your edge, to Landon Dickerson tonight, there's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah.
So
I think he was a running back in high school, right? He's that athletic.
He went to the University of Washington, and he played fullback on their scout team for them at time when they went up against Utah.
Right.
Utah was a 2-back team. So, anyways, but yeah, I mean, he's never put tape on his hands. I mean, he just puts a pair of shoulder pads on. He can play without the pads. It wouldn't make any difference.
When you got guys like Vita Vea it just reminds me of the bigger guys, the Haloti Ngadas, not as big as Saragusa, but when you think of guys like that that are there just to keep the linebackers, the Devin Whites, the Javonte free so they can be able to play the game, the fast downhill, not having guys on. We saw our team against the Cowboys when they were running the double teams up and our linebackers couldn't do anything about it because the defensive tackles were in their position at some point. Yeah. So when you have guys like Vita Vea that can eat a double team, that can keep you off the linebackers, it just makes your team better. Devin White and Levante David can run sideline to sideline. And that Devin White can definitely hurt us tonight because those read options and those things that Jalen Hurts like to do, scrambling, he's not going anywhere with this dude. Just not. If they don't catch him, in a blitz, Sure.
One thing I would add is I know that they were getting blown out and they were probably playing dime at this point, but Myles Gaskin had 10 catches last week versus the Bucs. And remember, David had a high ankle sprain. He's out this week. There's an opportunity. We talked about Gainwell. Get him out there in space, and they need to do that.
Absolutely.
Joe Tryon's a good player.
Oh, yeah, I meant to add Tryon.
He was a luxury pick.
He
was a first pick, 32nd pick. And, they use him in a lot of ways. They'll drop him into coverage. They rush him. They twist up with him. He does a lot. Now, with JPP out, he played a lot. But I saw him work this summer, just going out to training camp and watching him. He's an elite athlete, just an elite athlete. And when JPP moves on or they no longer can afford some of these guys, he's going to step right into that position.
Yeah.
All right, check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. They are for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. You can check them out on Twitter at PHLSportsNation, or you can just head to their website, check out all their coverage. They are PHLSportsNation.com. All right, we'll finish this up. And we've talked a little bit about the run game here and Miles Sanders and what they can do. This is also one of those nights where even if you wanted to establish a good run game and get physical,
good luck.
The defense across the end, they're paid too, as they like to say. This is one of the best run defenses in the NFL. And just to illustrate how good they are, they're allowing an NFL low 45.8 rushing yards per game, which is 30 rushing yards per game fewer than the second-ranked Browns. So there's some pretty big distance between them and everybody else in their run. Now, they're getting passed on a little bit.
Yeah.
I get that, but they're a pretty good run defense.
But, if you go back to the opening kickoff game of the season against the Cowboys, the Cowboys with Zeke and Tony Pollard, who were running the ball very well, they didn't even try. That was a night where Amari Cooper and CD, they shined.
Right.
They didn't even try to really establish. People were going, is Zeke part of this offense? We know that he is now, but not against them. That was their game plan. That's what Kellen Moore said. Why? Because no offense coordinator is, if you're running it on first down and it's 2nd and 9, they're not running the ball on 2nd and 9. So if you know pretty much that you're going to be 2nd and 9 against this front, you're not going to spend first down doing it.
They got the best players, the best front seven in football when everyone's healthy. With Levante David, you got Devin White, you got Sue, you got Vita Vea, you got Golston, you got Barrett, you got it's just those are Pro Bowlers, and they're above. They're above the league standard. There's a few guys that'll that are going to do.
And Delmican Sue has never missed a game.
Is that right?
Really?
Never missed a start. He's been suspended. He's been suspended.
Yeah.
He's never missed a start.
Wow.
In his career.
It's a pretty stout.
That's a stout front. But they're on a different level. They're Super Bowl champions, but they're dominant. So a lot of teams just don't want to try it because they know the results of it. So they give a lot of passes.
So what's the answer? Because as you brought up in the show with Quentin, they tried every single screen known to man last week, and the Panthers knew it was coming. So what's the answer today for all the pressure they're going to get if they're not going to be able to run the ball? Empty backfield. What are you seeing?
You still have to try screen games because you got to get your quarterback comfortable. That's the thing that we've seen.
Right.
We've seen the Atlanta game, we've seen the Carolina game, we've seen the Chiefs game. There was one common denominator there, common thread there is that they were quick getting the ball out, getting him comfortable. And so we're going to see that early in this game, and we'll see if it'll work against this team. Now this team is going to have to we're going to have to throw the ball in order to win. and to even have a shot. Now, I still think that you have to try your best to run the football. Don't just totally abandon it like we've seen the Cowboys do, like Baldy said. Don't abandon it, totally, and see if they're stout. You have to always try to attempt to establish a run game.
Sure.
And go for it after that, but
all right,
we'll see.
I set the over/under on Miles Sanders carries at 8. You are taking the
gosh.
Under.
You even had to think about it.
I don't see it. I don't see it. I just don't trust.
What do you got, 11
I learned my
months?
lesson with Sirianni as a play caller. I wanted to believe that he would understand how you win in the National Football League. You use the talents that you're given.
Right.
I didn't get it yet. I understand it's only been 5 games. I totally understand that. But at some point, you look at the talent level. We know Goddard's not playing this game, but Sanders, Gainwell, Watkins, who you guys talked about very well, and we know how explosive he is. And by the way, I mentioned earlier what Deshaun Jackson did to that secondary. He should have had 3 touchdowns against him. Jalen Reagor, just using him, get him the ball in his hands, making him go forward. Zach Ertz could still catch the football. And using the running backs in the pass game, forget the screen game. Miles Sanders is explosive. We know what he did 2 years ago. The catch that he had against Minnesota is one of my favorite plays that he's ever had.
Right.
This guy's explosive. Gainwell is someone in the NFL was telling me, had he stayed last year, he would have been a 2nd or 3rd round pick. No, he didn't play last year. He didn't play football.
Right.
You have so much talent on this team. Use it.
Right.
You're giving it, and he hasn't used it well.
Jay, we've seen a lot of rub routes. Now, whether they're running them correctly is
They do a lot of
another
those.
story. They do that. They've got some man beaters. But are you seeing? Because we're talking about that middle of the field. Are you seeing high lows? Are you seeing, shallow crosses on multiple levels where they are trying to get like a Reagor or Quez or anybody else not named Devontae Smith as a secondary target open across the middle?
Yeah, they have plays to get guys open. It's just that our receivers don't win one-on-one. They're too young to figure out to win the one-on-one matchups consistently.
Right, but some of those, when
Yeah.
I talk about a high-low, I mean, that's supposed to be designed to get a guy open in space where he doesn't have to necessarily.
Yeah, but the high-low is when you're playing zone. Our teams are playing man-to-man versus not the Panthers, but the
Right.
good teams, the Cowboys, the other teams, and they don't fear our receivers. When you talk about man-to-man, there is no high-low.
Right.
It just beats your man.
Right.
The high-low is for a zone defender and being able to put him in a quandary to be able to come over the top and
Sure.
create spacing. The man-to-man, you got to beat the man.
Right.
And we don't do that consistently on the outside. Devontae Smith has had some good games at doing it, but when you had him against Trayvon Diggs and the Cowboys, and when he was shadowing them and matching them, he didn't win those matchups consistently. So when you have younger players, you're going to have up and downs.
Right.
But what makes the great ones great is that they can win the one-on-ones. 'Cause last week, you put Xavier Howard on AB. You put Byron Jones on Mike Evans. Your best versus our best. You win because those guys win one-on-ones, and it makes the quarterback's job that much easier.
It's interesting. So I remember talking to Amari Cooper. He's a great router, right?
Yeah.
So there's a handful of them that just Keenan Allen and
Devontae
Stephon
Adams.
Diggs. I mean Devontae. So there's a handful
Calvin
that
Ridley.
just comes at the top, right off. Just tumbles out. So the one thing that Amari said to me was, no matter what type of double move, different type of release he was going to have, he was always cognizant of how long it's going to take. Because the quarterback can only stay on you so long. So when I watched Devontae move, just even like last week, he ran like a double move slant. And he actually Jalen actually stayed with him. And he did win the route. But I've also seen him try to do that, and Jalen's already off him.
Yeah.
And so I've seen, the one thing about like Josh Allen and Diggs, the reason why they were so prolific last year was Allen gave Diggs time to win those routes. Whoever, like it was against Jalen Ramsey, he gave him time. And that's the one thing about guys. Not everybody can run as a router. But I think Devontae can be that guy and has shown signs that he can separate with quickness and moves. But you have to be patient as a quarterback. Either knowing that he's working on the backside, if he's your X over here, and take your focus over here, knowing I got him back here, he's going to win, I can still come back.
Well, it's going to take that takes time because quarterbacks are like, first of all, you win. The way you stay around this league is you win on the quarterback's time. Devontae Adams has that luxury of beating people, so therefore he has a longer rope. Aaron Rodgers knows that he's going to win at some point, so I can stay with him. But most quarterbacks don't know that, and they don't trust that. So you have to show indicators in the routes. Okay, is he on the right side of the play when it comes to release? So on the slant, did he beat him inside? Therefore, I can stay a little bit longer. I have to give him indications that I'm winning along the way in the route.
Here's a question off of that. Devontae Smith is leading them in pass targets by far, because we're talking about commanding the football. Who else could you think is another guy that needs to get the football a ton? Goddard's not playing tonight. So tonight they're playing Tampa. Who else do they need to get the ball to other than Smith tonight?
Gainwell can, and if we're passing the ball, Gainwell is a nightmare matchup for anybody, even Devin White, because he has some subtlety to his game. It's not just about speed. It's about not being able to route guys up and make them think you're doing something that you're not. And I think he's the player that can do that. Quez Watkins is definitely going to be one of those players. The other guys, you got to like Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz can get open, but I think Q said it the best the other night. It's like Zach Ertz had like a certain way of running his routes. He would always break off the wrong foot, and he would like bleed his routes and not slow down. He would always talk about those things, and the league has caught up to it a little bit. So I don't think that's the best matchup, but Gainwell and Quez Watkins along with Devontae Smith.
Let me ask you something, Jason, because I thought Greg Ward looked like a good slot receiver at times last year. The way that he, the option routes, the change, the China routes, all the stuff that you can run in the slot. And he's like invisible.
Well, yeah. So they chose potential and talent over a player that has a ceiling, right? So they're saying Jalen Reagor doesn't have a ceiling. Quez Watkins can be a Pro Bowler. Those things, they have a higher ceiling, and we know what Greg Ward is going to be. He's going to be a solid possession guy. He's going to be a red zone target. He can get open in those situations. But they're saying, do I limit their potential for giving him playing time? And so, but situationally, you will need a Greg Ward. And that's what most offense coordinators don't understand, is that those players are good players. You just need a situation for them. Third down, fourth down, when you need a play to be made. That was me. My job was third down, fourth down. Exactly, because you need those players. Some players, some coaches, Chip Kelly, whatever, they don't find the value. Coach Reed always has a player like that around, because you're going to need that player that you can play through when your guys are not playing up to their best.
It used to be Ertz.
Yeah.
Years ago, it used to be Ertz, but they don't have that guy. Oh, here are the inactives: Gardner Minshew, Mac McCain, Lane Johnson, Jack Anderson, and Marlon Tuipulotu.
Marlon Tuipulotu, inactive. All right, so a couple of rookies there.
And no surprise for the Bucs. So the guys that were expected to be out who are out. So there you go.
Well, we got a few minutes left, so we're going to do what we do. I like to say worst, but, I think we do it best, where we start to predict the game and the players.
Wait, did you pick the Eagles last week?
No, I picked the Panthers.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Someone got it right, I thought.
No, I'm sorry. I did pick the Eagles, yes.
Okay.
Me and Jason were the only ones to pick it right.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see if
we got to get our records. We got to get our records.
All right, so, of course, we're going to go to our Player of the Game segment, but if you want to get an advantage over your sportsbook, you got to download BetQL, the only app you'll need to make smart bets. Their best bet computer model scans over 350,000 unique bets a year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports, and gives you the reason behind why you should place the bet. Their model covers everything from spreads, over-unders, player prop bets. Don't want to use the model? That's okay. If you want to do the research yourself, BetQL's got the necessary tools for your betting research needs. They've got sharp data, line movement, team summaries, lineup and injury breaking news, even a leaderboards to track your success. So head to the App Store or Google Play Store now to download BetQL. You can also head to try.betql.co/ITB to get started right now. Just enter the discount code ITB at payment checkout to get 25% off their subscription offerings. And of course, check out their sportsbook offers page if you live in one of the eligible states to claim free offers upon signing up at one of the many sportsbooks listed. It'll be a great deal for you. So don't miss out on the chance to beat your sportsbook this fall season using BetQL. I brought this up last week because they have really good data on where the money is going, where the line's going, and they are right now, BetQL has the Buccaneers predicted to win this game by an 80% margin. So that's where
what's the point
that's
spread?
just where their models
still
are.
6.5?
We'll get into the spread. It is 6.5.
Okay.
Last I checked, I was going to get into that.
I got to get up there.
They've got the Bucs winning the first half on the road, which is always tough. And their overall look, they see a big game for Jalen Hurts, 270 pass yards, a touchdown, 25 rushing yards as well. And they actually think Miles Sanders gets the ball 10 times in the running game. So that's quite interesting based on.
More than 8 game day.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're going to take the over on that. So let's get to our player of the game.
Yeah.
We'll start off with you, Jason. Who's going to be the player of the game?
The GOAT, Tom Brady.
I am? Oh, no, Tom Brady.
Yeah,
Right, there you go.
Tom Brady. I have Tom Brady being it. Like, this defense is too vanilla. Even with the upgrade, or they played better last week and having Rodney and having some guys back, but no chance versus this guy.
All right.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, player of the game. Where have I heard that before? Adam, who's your player of the game?
It's going to be Antonio Brown in the intermediate area. That's where he's going to beat the Eagles. We've seen it way too much. Deebo Samuel crushed them. Really, he had over 90 yards in that game, but Antonio Brown still has it well into his 30s, and he will get them tonight.
Yeah, all right, Antonio Brown. Baldy, who's going to be your player of the game?
I'm going to basically ditto what Jason just said about Tom Brady. And he's just on that course right now. He knows that a good game and a victory tonight, that there's some time off to kind of almost like a mini bye week. He knows how much value that is for a guy like himself and for the team. And so I think he's going to be highly motivated to come in here, get this win, get back to Tampa, take a couple days off, go see his buddy Gronk, see if there's anybody in the waiver wire he can go pick up and help his team.
Sure.
Bring him on board. He'll be scouting the whole league on Sunday.
What's Randy Moss doing these days?
He'll be scouting the whole league this weekend. He'll be telling his GM, I need this guy. Go get him for me.
Out of retirement.
I don't think Adrian Peterson is officially retired yet, has he? So we'll have to see. All right, but the sore thumb, though, I guess that don't matter.
Tonight. Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to pick a wide receiver, not Antonio Brown. I'll go with the other guy who had a big game last week. I'm going to say Mike Evans. The Eagles have some good corners, but the physical, tall guy, you saw Slay have a little issue with that last year.
Yeah.
Granted, that was a lot more man defense, but that guy's a beast, Mike Evans, and I think this secondary is not a great matchup for his skill set. As far as the line, now it started off at 6.5 today, but it has moved, not in the Eagles' favor. It's now back up to 7, according to the Bet Rivers line. So you want to get on that right now. The over/under was 52.5. I think that's been pretty much the same thing right there. Remember, Sundays are made for football. It's Thursday night, but Sundays are definitely made for football at Rivers Casino in Philadelphia. Every Sunday from now until the end of the season, you can get $7 food specials in Jack's Bar and Grill, right here in Jack's Bar and Grill. You can get half-price gourmet burgers at Hugo's Chop House, drink specials, and more. And not only that, but when the Birds score, you score when you're actively planning with your Rush Rewards card in their Bird's Nest pit in front of the sportsbook. Remember, you can be a winner at Rivers Casino Philadelphia, where Philly loves a winner. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, the time of reckoning is here. We're going to give our score and prediction pick. Jason, I'm going to start with you. Got a big smile on your face. You picked the Eagles to win last week.
I did.
You were right.
I did.
You're on a hot streak.
You look good after 3 quarters, though. But okay.
Yeah.
You feeling the Eagles tonight?
No.
No.
Reality.
I'm Birds through and through, but this is just too great of a task. I got the Bucks winning 38-24, I believe.
So you see a fairly high-scoring game there.
Yeah.
You would take the over if you were a betting man. That's over 60 points you got. So you think the Eagles can get 24 tonight?
I think they can, because they're going to be in situations where they're throwing the ball a bunch. So I think it can happen.
A little bit like the Kansas City game?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Brian, what do you see?
I like the Bucks as well. I gave you the score 38-17. I'm going to stay with it.
Yeah.
I think that the Eagles just look challenged. They look challenged in a lot of different areas. This isn't Kansas City with a really bad defense where you could challenge them and go up and down the field a little bit. They're not that weak.
Okay. Well, before we could, I'm just wondering, you know how things are here. You know how the crowd can get into a game and anything can happen. If this game is close going into the fourth quarter, does that kind of favor the Eagles for hanging in there, or do you look at the experience of Tampa Bay and say at some point they'll break the dam?
I think that it's favorable for them going forward in the season, but not in the fourth quarter, because you have the greatest. One of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play this game, and is known to come back. So he's built for those moments in time. So, and I don't think that our young quarterback, our young team, young coaching staff will be able to handle a veteran coaching staff, Bruce Arians, Leftwich, you know, Todd Bowles, Tom Brady. It's just too much to overcome in that situation.
You both.
But going forward, it'll be a boast of confidence being there.
Yeah, and I heard the term today, listening to some sports talk radio, like morale victory, and whether such a thing exists. And for some fans, they don't, but they always wonder about a player's perspective. I mean, you guys both played in the league. I know you wanted to win every single game, but were there games where you guys felt that if you can make a game of it, you've accomplished something? You're a growing team. It may be tough for you, Jay, because you were always on teams that were supposed to win.
Like, I've never been on a team where we didn't think we were going to win, or at least me personally.
Right.
I've never been on a team where I win the game like, oh, we're going to lose this game. The closest thing I ever got was when we made it a close game up in New England, when they were you know, beating the brakes off of teams. You know, like they hung like 60 on Washington that year. It was crazy. It was nuts. So that game was one of those games like, oh man, we just got to stay in it.
You guys
to the
had
end,
it.
you know. So
AJ Feely, he was feeling it. And then Asante Samuel happened. Back in the end zone.
Asante said, look, after the game, I was like, son, how'd you see it? He was like, he did. When you do a double move against me, you got to show me the ball. He's like, he never showed me the ball. He had it here. You got to bring that ball up. If I see the ball, I'll go for it.
I'm glad you asked, by the way, what it's like for a writer. When you're covering a game like that, you know how you hit Control, Alt, Delete, and everything you've written goes kaput?
New York and the Meadowlands, too. Same issue.
Yeah, that's been some of our stuff. Adam, who do you got winning tonight?
So I got the Bucs winning 30-20. I just think that they've got too much for them. There might be times during the game where like, wow, okay, the Eagles are moving the ball, game's tight, but in the end, Brady's going to get them, as he always does. And I just think in the end, Brady's going to be the man. He's going to get it to AB, and they'll win the game. All
right, so you have the Bucs winning by 10, still not covering. It's all right. I have the Bucs also winning 29-16.
Not that high score.
I feel like there's going to be one possession where the Bucs don't get the touchdown, like they either stall or get the interception or something. I'm gonna. They're on the road. They didn't play a great road game against somebody earlier this year.
The Patriots,
against the Patriots.
It was pouring
rain.
You
But
know,
still,
Jason's gonna do a rain dance in a minute for us anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. So almost picking the Bucs to win and by double digits. Remember, before you put your money down, go to BetQL. Check out all those great statistical trends and data so you make the most educated bet. And of course, place that bet here at Bet Rivers Philadelphia or on the Bet Rivers app. Big thanks to everybody for tuning in. Big thanks to Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, Sky Motor Cars, BetQL, Rebel Hill, and Public Square. Of course, our guest today, Brian Baldinger, did an excellent job of filling in for Greg Cosell, who will be back with us in 2 Sundays. For Jason Avant, Brian Baldinger, Adam Kaplan, I'm Jeff Mosher. Everybody enjoy the game.